Welcome to the True Sky Crew podcast, where we share our cosmic pearls of wisdom. Why do we use True Sky Astrology? Because when we align with the true sky, we align with our true self. We're your hosts, Janine and Sachi. Thank you guys for joining us live or on the replay. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to discuss some really awesome things, not only Scorpius and Ophiuchus. You guys, we have an announcement that we have been kind of keeping under wraps for a couple weeks, and we are so excited to share it with you. Drum roll. Do we want to just jump in?
Yeah,
I'm so
let's
excited about the announcement. We're going to do a summer solstice meetup, you guys.
Woo!
Yay!
Yes.
On this.
Yeah, so June 19th to the 24th, we will be visiting the Serpent Mound, which is in Ohio. And we are going to be hanging out for 6 days and 5 nights. And we also have access to the 4-day festival, which we will take care of your parking fees and or transportation to and from the event each day, and also possible transportation from the airport if you're flying into Cincinnati. And then let me pull these up here. All right, let's see. Okay, and so the 4-day festival has a whole jam-packed, wonderful list of events that they're doing each day. So Thursday, which is the actual solstice itself, there are a lot of different events going on each day: music, speakers, lectures, and I'm assuming they'll have like food trucks and things like that. And so it's up to you whether you want to come each day to the events or what events that you want to participate in. But Thursday evening, interesting. It's the evening when the sun aligns with the egg. Correct?
At Serpent Mound, yes.
At Serpent Mound.
Yes. It's sunset. It's sunset at Serpent Mound on the summer solstice where it aligns. Yeah.
Yeah, which is beautiful. You know what? We didn't can you send me a picture of Serpent Mound?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. I forgot to include a graphic. So for anyone
add a
who
graphic.
doesn't know, this is some Native American
mound builders.
mounds, that depict a snake basically eating an egg, or perhaps a sperm fertilizing an egg, that can only be seen from aerial view, similar to like the Nazca lines and some other things that people are familiar with.
Yeah, ancient earthwork builders.
Yes.
Totally cool. Okay, I sent it from the True Sky Crew account.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it shows north through certain alignments. It shows different solstice and equinox alignments through the shape of its curved body, like the serpentine curves in it point at different solar alignments. So it's a very powerful geomantic site as far as that goes, and the cultures that were there were very adept at these things. So like American, you think about the Druids in sort of like England and Ireland, and it's sort of similar in energy. They were earth workers, right? Mm-hmm. Grid workers in America, those groups. So that's kind of a rough diagram of what the mounds look like. There's actually more mounds that are supposed to depict Orion's belt. Like they're set in the same geometric alignments as the pyramids in Giza, but they're just, you go there and you're like, well, it just looks like a grassy hill, but it was their anchoring frequencies from Orion and through Egypt. So I have a feeling we're getting called to do some tuning while we're there.
Exactly. And you can only see it from aerial view, which it's so interesting because we are doing our Scorpius+/Ophiuchus episode today, and it's perfect because both of the signs are involved with snake spirit.
Yeah.
Even ascending higher, right, to the higher emanations of being able to see aerial view. So it's like you can't really understand the snake until you reach the bird level.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Remote
these
view it.
are
Yeah.
amazing, high energy. It's a really great place to be for such a energetically charged day. It's like
Yeah.
literally a part of the earth where indigenous peoples built us a geomancy
Mm-hmm.
place. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
or
record
tool
keepers.
almost.
Celestial record keepers
Mhm.
built this. So they knew some stuff about some stuff.
Mhm.
And it is a fascinating. I have been there before. It's like a hidden treasure in Ohio. It's just it's mind blowing that it's there. Not enough people talk about it.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
we're going.
Yes, we are. And the detailed lists um of all the cool stuff that they're doing at the festival is on my website. So if you want to look into specifically who the musicians and speakers are, you can check there. But back to the good stuff. I mean, it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. It's not back. We're just continuing the good stuff. Uh, with your purchase of a spot, you also will receive a 30-minute chart analysis by me and Janine. So we will both sit down together with you and talk about your chart for 30 minutes. We will have someone cooking breakfast for us every day, and also we will have a farewell dinner together. And you can choose either to have a PDF calendar for free or 1 month of the daily planner for free, whichever
That's a good,
you
yeah,
like.
that's going in the goodie bag.
That's
We were
going
like,
in,
let's
yeah.
sweeten the pot a little bit.
Uh-huh. And we'll be doing group activities throughout the whole 6-day, 5-night stay. We'll be doing some card pulls, some breath work, maybe some meditation. Obviously, we're at a very special place on Earth, so focusing on our alignment and intentionality and making sure that we are attuning correctly is something that we will all do together. Well, if you want to participate or not, of course.
Yeah, it's optional.
Everything's
Whatever
optional.
you
You
feel,
could come and
whatever you
just
feel
sit
called to
there if you
do.
want.
Yeah. Or you can go for a walk or sit in a
Mhm.
hammock or,
Yeah,
whatever you feel called to do because everybody attunes their own way kind of thing.
exactly.
But we'll have lots of options. Seriously,
Yes,
it's going to be amazing. And there's a
definitely.
cute little cabin. Like
Mhm.
it's a little
Yeah.
hunting retreat cabin. It's super cute. Goodie bag with shirts. We're designing a logo for some special shirts.
Mhm.
Probably not going to be able to get these anywhere else. Like,
That's right.
probably won't sell these anywhere. These will be like only for
These
this
are
event.
exclusive to the event.
Yeah, gonna be super cute.
Mm-hmm. And that will be part of the goodie bag. And then we'll also, of course, be doing some stargazing. So we'll be chatting around the campfire, looking at the sky, doing the stuff that we talk about all the time.
And the
And
icing on the cake,
this is woo.
the 20th falls on a podcast day for us. So we're going to podcast live from the cabin, and everybody there gets to be on the podcast.
Woo.
We're probably going to do a little info about like what solstice is, what it looks like, for the planet kind of thing. And then we're probably going to talk about the vibes, like how everybody's experiencing it, and just do a little chit chat episode. I think it's going to be great.
Yep.
So that will be a special episode. Yeah, that'll be a special topic episode for us. And then the next week we will do July transits. So it's going to be a busy month in June for us.
Yes, it is. It's going to be a fun month.
So true.
Uh-huh. And
so
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say I will pull up the sleeping arrangements. So we have 5-ish spots, which we will explain what this means. So these are the sleeping options that we have available. There is a queen private room, and then there's 2 sets of bunk beds. So there's a single top bunk and a double bottom bunk. So if you and a friend want to each get a bunk in a room together, or maybe you want to share a double together, however you feel called to make it there and hang out with us, that would be wonderful. Also, you can talk to some people in the True Sky Crew group chat if you want to split a room or split a double bed or the queen room to make things a little bit more cost effective for you. That is also an option.
Do we want to mention the potential camp spots, or do we want to hang on to that? There's a potential. There's a potential. There may be some camp spots where the place is out in like a big rural area. So I'm actually like, I might just bring my tent and camp outside because I like to camp. So that's also an option.
So if you're someone who tents and things like that, or has an RV
car camps, car
yeah.
camps.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm a car camper. I have a setup in the back of my car where I can just drive across 5 states and camp at a state park and nobody knows.
Yeah, so if you're interested in that, you can DM us and we can discuss that. And
yeah, it's not going to be like festival camping.
To add that to the website.
Yeah, you will have access to a bathroom and a kitchen.
Yeah, you will come.
Stuff, but...
Yeah, you will enjoy the meals with us. You'll still have breakfast with us every day. You can shower, and farewell dinner. You get the goodie bag. It's everything except you provide your own lodging on the land that we're at.
Yeah. I think there's a picnic table there. I think there's a picnic table.
I believe so. Yeah.
There's a big campfire pit, and I'm gonna bring like a canopy, like a picnic table canopy thing, and so that'll be covered, and there'll be plenty of shade and stuff if you want to hang out outside. So it's gonna be super fun getting back in touch with nature.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'll just bring my hammock and like hang out in the hammock. It's gonna be so nice in June. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sleep outside. Yeah.
So if you're interested, you can go to SACHI'S.com and go to the True Sky Crew or True Sky Tools, and you can find all of the information there. And if you have any questions or anything, you can reach out to us via email at thetrueskycrew@gmail.com or through the website or DMs. But yeah, we really hope that you are as excited as we are to come hang out with us and do lots of cool stuff at the Serpent Mound. We are really, really excited to meet whoever is aligned with this trip.
Yeah, totally. That's gonna be the fun part, is like hanging out with the crew. This is kind of like where we want to take all this, is just when we feel Earth calling us to a place, it's like we're gonna go, and the crew can come too.
Exactly. Grid workers unite.
Exactly.
And have some fun.
Yep, connecting heaven and earth. Amazing. So that's our fun announcement. And anything else? I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, check out the website. I will throw links in the description if you're listening to this episode after the live, so you'll be able to find it, and feel free to message us or email us if you're interested.
Yep.
If you have any questions. Cool. Okay. Shall we discuss the most interesting and intense part of the sky, Scorpius and Ophiuchus? All right.
I think so.
Let's do it.
All right. So it's very interesting, again, that we didn't even really make the connection until just recently, when we're like, oh yeah, we're doing Scorpius+/Ophiuchus episode, and it just happened to align with our announcement of meeting at the Serpent Mound.
Yeah.
So
funny.
It really, really worked out well. It's funny, those happy coincidences. And yes, Scorpius and Ophiuchus.
Yeah,
these
you
signs
cannot,
of
you
like
cannot,
energy management and utilization almost.
yeah, you can't talk about one without talking about the other. Like they go together.
They do.
So you'll see when we get to the sky maps why that is, but
Should we
it's
just pull up?
they're a fascinating pair. Well, let's go through this slide real fast and then we'll go
Okay. Oh yeah, we'll
to
do this.
the app or wherever you want to go next. So the true sky dates from the first fixed star of Scorpio to the last fixed star of Scorpio officially is November 24th to December 19th. So Scorpio is actually a big sign if you look at the whole constellation. And the thing with Ophiuchus is Ophiuchus overlaps it completely. So Ophiuchus is actually bigger than Scorpius. So the mode of Scorpius is fixed water, mode and element, fixed water, associated with eighth house things. It is a yin or magnetic polarity. So that's fascinating because ruled by Pluto and Mars. So it's like hidden masculine energy type things. But that yin polarity is kind of like instant recipe for alchemy, right? For uniting, doing inner alchemy processes. The actual size of Scorpius is 25 arc degrees in the sky. So that means it's about 25 days. The sun transits through Scorpius alignments for about 25 days. So you won't see that in a true sidereal chart because they calculate it a little differently. But when you really sit down and look at the sky, you're like, that's kind of not really what it's doing. So
Yeah,
it's important to
that's
note
in
that.
terms of alignment. Yeah. But
Yeah.
when it comes to actually being in Scorpius constellation, it's about a 7-degree
Well, the
period.
biggest intensity is about 7 degrees. Like I think you and I differ a little bit in how we read it. I'll read the whole constellation because the alignments are just as powerful no matter where they are on above or below the ecliptic. But yeah, the power of Scorpio is when it moves through that first cusp star until about Antares. So that's when it's actually transiting the constellation, and you will get the biggest burst of alchemical work. So do you want to switch over to the sky app and show them what it looks like?
Which is why when we were creating our calendar and daily planner, we have moving forward, we're gonna call it Scophiuchus. Like there are certain things where you can't really separate one from the other. So here is Scorpius. There's the head, the stinger, and here is Ophiuchus, the big guy holding serpents, or big person.
Oh, that just made a dream make sense. Okay, thank you.
Was there a big person?
Yeah, there was a big guy standing on my right in a dream, and I was like, wow, he's really big. It was probably that's probably what it was. So funny. Sidebar. Okay, funny how synchronicity drops in like that, just in day-to-day conversation. Yeah, so you can see if you can zoom in just a little bit more so they can see closer in to Scorpius, like how the ecliptic just kind of wings it. So that biggest pop of energy, I feel like when the sun or the planet, whatever the planet is that's traveling through there, goes through that, it's like a membrane. And it's almost like that's the death portal. It's like it is going to surface something from the unconscious, subconscious, like the Pluto level matrix things. It's like, hey, guess what? You need to see this. You need to take a look at this and work this out.
You need to see this.
You need to see this. You need to Ophiuchus this. But anyway.
You need to see this in Ophiuchus.
And then for about, I think it's 6 or 7 days, once it gets past Antares, that's about 6 or 7 days into the Scorpius transits. Like that is such a huge Stargate portal. It's like the get into the past life stuff and remember who the F you are.
Yeah.
fixed star. And that means any dimension, timeline, parallel, like wherever it's parked, you're going to learn how to deal with it, work with it, right? It's going to send you there. That's the portal to the underworld, which when you understand what that is, you're like, oh, that's no big deal. That's actually good. I need to go see that stuff, right? I need to get down there in my subconscious and take a look at that stuff because it needs some alchemy.
Exactly.
And then you get, because of the proximity to Ophiuchus's leg there, it's like you get this opportunity to spiral up there because the planet or sun is also cruising through that Ophiuchus leg asterism there. So that's one of the actual places where you get a direct, I feel like they're almost like gong reverberations when a planet passes through that Ophiuchus asterism. It's like Scorpio, Scorpio, Scorpio. It's like a percentage of Scorpio, which is a high percentage in this area, and a smaller percentage of Ophiuchus. And then you go through that leg asterism and it's like gong. It's like, oh, healing, right? You get the healing potential. And he has another leg further over, like maybe less than 2 weeks. Yeah, that leg right there. When he transits that,
where the ecliptic actually
crosses it. Yeah. You'll get
and
another
yeah, it's
gong.
like right when you are, after you enter the death membrane, as we've called it, it's like you can either spiral up to Ophiuchus, which is grappling the snake and healing, or you can spiral downwards. Okay, yeah, that didn't even go the way it's supposed to. Into the poison sting of Scorpius, which is not where you want to be, but no judgment.
I love that.
No judgment.
No judgment.
No judgment. Been there, done that. Was a Scorpio. Send it out.
Yeah, and everything's an opportunity. It's like if it's coming up, it's just there to be addressed. Like it's coming from somewhere. It's in your soul blueprint somewhere. You don't resist. I mean, that is such a lesson.
Yeah.
Like, don't resist. The more you resist, the more toxicity that actually builds up. So Antares is a very opportune star where you can learn so much about like other lifetimes. It's like a gateway to the Akashic kind of thing. It's a gateway to the underworld, but when you understand the underworld is just like Akashic records type things that still need some resolution, you're like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can do that while I'm awake. There's modalities you can use to do that stuff without it coming up and taking you over, like like sludge coming up out of the sewer, and it's like, I'm going to take you to the underworld. It's like, no, we don't work that way here.
Yeah, exactly.
This is my game. We're playing my game the way I play my game.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's like it's your own shadow anyway. So that's the whole part of mastering the scorpionic part of the sky, and even Ophiuchian part of the sky, is you have to integrate the shadow in order to have that inner unity and inner wholeness to truly move forward and embody the highest vibration of this celestial area.
Yeah, you have to have the opportunity to address it. And shadow can be very uncomfortable. Like a lot of people run from that shadow. And in that way, you have to learn that Scorpio really gives you the opportunity to embrace that shadow worker soul job, where it's like you can just turn around and hug that shadow and it integrates and everything else just melts away. And that is a very powerful person walking around on this planet, that everything they witness, address, they know how to alchemize it. They have spiraled up into that Ophiuchus, master of their chi energy. So very, very important. And let's see, great attractor. Yeah, it's a few days. I was like, I think that's really close to an alignment with a great attractor in normal constellation, but that is a few days after. Just spreading the power around. It would be a lot if that was all in one spot, but no. Okay, where do we want to go from here now that everybody can kind of see because we have two archetypes to talk about. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to cover today.
We do have a lot to
We
cover today.
keep it
They're
moving.
they're so intertwined that it's hard to talk about one without the other, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
So the symbols of Scorpius are spider spirit, scorpion, lizard, snake, wolf, eagle, and phoenix, which we will talk about on the next slide. We'll go more detail about what that entails. But it represents so Scorpius is the sign that rules death and rebirth of transformation. And so there are various emanations, and you can spiral up or down, just like we said. And oftentimes, when it comes to the emanations, you can be moving through multiple layers of scorpionic energy at a time. You may be working with snake and spider, or snake and phoenix even. And so it's important to remember that because Scorpio rules the underworld and things like that, all the Plutonian dimensional aspects, is that because there are so many dimensions to ourselves and so many layers to ourselves, the way that Scorpius is expressed also has that stratification.
Yeah, that's so key with Scorpius energy, is that you are learning about layers of personality matrices, dimensions, timelines. Like it's the layers and layers of things.
Exactly.
In every capacity. Emotional layers, stuck
Yeah.
emotional layers, all
Yes,
kinds of
definitely
stuff.
stuck emotional layers. And that's why Scorpio rules over depth, because there are so many layers to everything. And when we think about it in juxtaposition to Libra, which was our last zodiac episode, Libra was all about surface level things, about judging the book by the cover. And sometimes there's a good reason because we're looking at something, we're taking in that data. But Scorpio is the total opposite. It's like, F what's on the surface, what's underneath. We gonna dig.
Yeah.
We gonna dig deep. And once we hit the bottom, I'm gonna see if I can go further.
Yeah.
And that is it's a strength of Scorpio. It's like they have a suit that allows them to go down, down, down and withstand the pressure of going to some of the deepest depths of existence and our own souls. But also an important part of that is to remember, hey, life isn't just about going down. It's about going up too. So I find that a lot of scorpionic energy sort of finds a self-sabotaging sweet spot in the darkness and the depths, where they sometimes forget to come out for air and not spend all their time down there.
Yeah, they can
That was
stay in
definitely
like that.
my experience as a Scorpio. A lot of the time, it was really in some like hellish timelines.
Yeah, they can stay stuck in that shadow spiral.
Yeah.
And they can't always get themselves up into the it takes the present moment awareness, because the dimensionality set, when you activate like this Scorpio skill set, it's like you're present with all the concurrent, like in this now moment, you are witnessing all the stuck layers. Like you can feel it, you literally can feel it, and you have to be able to detach from it to go, that's somewhere, that's not now. Like I'm not, that's not going on in my reality now, and where's it coming from? And they do have to really learn to stay in the present moment to get to that spiral up with the Ophiuchus, because when you can grab it in the now moment and go, aha, there's a nugget, okay, let's do the alchemy on it, it's like you can instantly flip it like a switch. Just don't stay and wallow in it. Like Scorpio tends to wallow.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they tend to glorify the pain, and
The
it's like, don't
pain.
do that. Don't
I
do
know.
that.
And that's, yeah, sadism is definitely a scorpionic shadow trait, because again, Scorpio loves depth. And there's nothing wrong with loving depth. We all want to feel deeply about things sometimes, but oftentimes scorpionic energy, the deepest that they have ever felt is something like heartbreak or grief or disappointment or fear. And they get addicted to the most depth that they've ever experienced, which is usually some sort of pain. And that's how Scorpius rules the pain body of needing to feel that pain and search for depth.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Ophiuchus a little bit more, I guess that would even make more sense in terms of Lilith be included, because Lilith holds codes of transmuting pain to pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we had a fascinating little chat about chart rulers
mm-hmm.
before we actually went live, and it's like, oh, I think we need to rethink this, and we're just gonna
yeah.
we're gonna
talk it through it with
go
you.
through it like live,
Mm-hmm.
kind of as we recalibrate it in our brains.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, at Scorpio, definitely you're right about the deep feelings. They're like trying to access the true version of themselves, and they get hung up in shadow body stuff, and then they
Yeah.
just stay there because they don't, society really doesn't teach us this skill set about how to do trans-dimensional, trans timeline work, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we're definitely not taught to feel our feelings and to how to process feelings. Like, it's all like, oh, let's just keep that in a nice little bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it takes, some of these people, some people that come into family lines to alchemize really stuck lineages who are considered the black sheep, right? They have so much work that they're doing and they don't get any support. So support your Scorpio friends.
Yes.
They came here to do a lot of work.
As long as they're not poisoning you,
Yeah, you do have to watch out for that. They might get addicted to, like, what is that program where it's like savior, like somebody needs to save me. No. You came here because you have a powerful skill set. You need to freaking get with the program.
Exactly. Yeah, and in terms of those stuck emotions, that's why Scorpius is fixed water. So it's water that gets stuck in the emotional body. So if you think of fixed as, a solid element, it's like ice that gets formed in your emotional body when emotions get stuck. And you have to thaw it out with fire, which, Scorpius basically evolves into a fire sign when it reaches the Phoenix emanation, which is, the master of the alchemical fire. So that's the thing, is emotions, if they get stuck and you can't, you're repressing feeling them, that causes, that fixed water to be created in the emotional body, which then influences your auric field as well. But also, when you're feeling your emotions and you get stuck feeling that particular emotion over and over again, that's when it can sometimes bring in Piscean energy, which is addiction to substances. So people who want to feel, happy all the time. So they're, taking MDMA or whatever, or people who love feeling depressed all the time. So they're constantly wallowing in self-pity and hurtful moments and times where they felt ashamed and all those sorts of things. So, it's not just refusing to feel it. Sometimes it's like, again, like that being addicted to your own pain body.
Yeah, and it can be like they just are depressed. They don't know where it's coming from. They don't have any help. They don't understand how to work with it or resolve it. So they go on medication to manage it. That can also be the other side of the coin with that. It's like you feel like you're stuck on medication for the rest of your life. So you're kind of half checked out just to function with that sort of addiction matrix stuff. And it really is to learn the skill set of getting in and addressing the emotional body to do the alchemy. Because with Scorpios, it usually is very deep and there's a lot to look at.
Yes.
And you've got to be persistent. It's that Pluto Mars energy. It's like you got to take the action. You got to get in there deep AF until you popped out the other side, which Pluto matrix is got a lot of shenanigans. So
yeah,
a lot to look at.
Exactly.
So deep respect to people that have true Scorpius placements, because y'all are ballers.
That's true. And they'll be asking for deeper all the time.
Yeah.
In more ways than one, for sure. Which the phrase I desire or I create is such the perfect depiction of how Scorpionic energy is. What they desire is created because they have that yin and Mars, that masculine yang force that is coming together. So whatever they are desiring is their reality. And that's a part of understanding the emotional body, whether you're fixated on a certain emotion or you're refusing to feel something that you need to feel. So that information gets integrated into the auric body, is that whatever you're repressing or obsessed with, that is your emotional experience is directly influencing the way that your reality is materializing around you. And so
Yeah.
part of it is like taking that responsibility of, I am in control of my reality. I'm in control of my inner reality, which is always, reflecting my outer reality. And so it takes a certain level of self-commitment and self-realization and self-actualization and really being honest with yourself of like, my misery is my own fault. My joy is by my own creation. And that is such an important part of Scorpius energy, or else it just stays like, emo suicidal pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like Scorpios probably have a very direct connection to their causal body because of that, what I desire, I create. Like they don't even, it's a very unconscious process. Like we have to remember with the Scorpius aspects, this is the more animalistic, instinctual sort of drives, whereas the Ophiuchus is more the mastery level, of conscious awareness, doing the alchemy consciously. So Scorpius, they probably have a subconscious autopilot connection to their causal body where if, whatever they're doing, it just manifests things for them.
Mm-hmm.
Their emotional state will manifest the thing. But what you got to understand is like the emotion is, if it's a low vibe emotion, it's probably stuck somewhere and it's actually manifesting a timeline for them to walk the timeline to make different decisions because of the Mars component with Scorpius. And it's like, if they can't see the bigger picture of what's showing up, or you don't understand timelines and how to navigate things that show up in your reality like a real-time ninja, then they just get stuck and keep doing it over and over again. And sometimes the lessons just compile and compile until it almost pushes them through a pop of a membrane where it's like, it's do or die time. Figure this out.
Yeah. And oftentimes
it feedback loops.
Choose die, whether
That's true.
metaphorically and sometimes literally.
Because they think they can't see the way out. Yeah. They're just like, I'm trapped like a rat. I feel like too, because of I love how you use, I mean, it's so obvious. I don't know why I'd never thought about it until like I met you and we started talking about it. The fixed water as ice, because in the wound diagram that I use, that is connected to injustice wounding, which is it's not fair, and you're just railing against everything in the world and you're projecting all this venom, and it usually is connected with like curses and grudges, which is so Scorpio. Like they can be very vengeful when they don't have a handle on their work. They blame it on everybody else outside of them.
Yeah.
And it's very like internal seething, very angsty on the outside, and I'm like, that tracks so tight with that one.
It does.
And I always associated the fixed water with like a deep well. Like it's very still water. It doesn't move a whole lot. There's no, flow. It's just stagnant. It's like a marsh or a deep well, and there's definitely some skeletons under that mud.
Yeah, I take Scorpius if there was like a sewage chute to like inner, like to just like, I don't even know. Like I would say inner earth, but that's not even dimensional enough. But just to the ends of the universe, if there is one.
Into Scorpius phantom pockets.
Would be, it would be like the one in the, pressure resistant suit deep diving into the sewage system for whatever reason. They really do just the most disgusting deep work.
I can attest to that. It's true. I've been in some nasty grid stuff.
Yeah, I've been through absolute sludge during this lifetime, especially as a tropical Scorpio. It was not, well, I guess I did have fun. But a lot of it was tricking myself into believing that, pain is cool or pain is fun. It was all just pain programs that were, running.
Yeah.
But I definitely had fun. But glad to be out of it. I've never go back.
Yeah, that's good. I never really identified with my tropical Scorpio. It was like my Venus, my sun would have been parked there. And I was like, no, that doesn't compute. I still studied it, but I was like, no, I don't see it. And then when I switched to True Sky, I was like, oh, my North Node and my Neptune are at Antares. And like, wait, there it is. It's like, I have had to go so extremely deep to recover connections to my higher self. And it's like, literally, it was my life path in this life. It was like, there's no tropical algorithm that was going to stop me from doing that. Like, you are going in head first. It's like, the experience is like jumping, what do they call it? Base jumping off like a skyscraper. And you're just like, you just free base, or that's not the right word, free base.
That's also something Scorpius is.
Yeah, I know, right? That's a Scorpio addiction matrix.
Yeah.
You basically base jump off a building into all this grid shit, and it's like you just dive in and do it. And it's like jumping into the sewer, like head first, just go. And it was, I can attest to that scorpionic membrane being like a gong, because when that shit comes in, like things that have been that repressed in your psyche for many lifetimes, when that shit enters your conscious awareness, it sends your body haywire. And I've done a lot of work to get back to a normal state, and like better than normal, because it's like I had to go in that deep to recover parts that were just so obliterated from consciousness state, like used and abused and some nasty gnarly grids. So the Scorpio work is no joke, folks.
Not for the faint of heart. Yeah.
Folks with Scorpius placements have such a specific skill set from a soul level. They are experts at doing this. You just have to remember that you are that powerful if you have these placements, and that when you activate and you actively start working on it, like the powers that manipulate quiver in fear. No joke. They're like, oh shit, she woke up. They'll try and do anything to keep you. Oh, you want to stay unconscious? Sure, let us put a symbol in your aura. We'll help you stay asleep so you never find that nugget, because they do not want you to find that nugget. Because when you do, it is like you just clear stuff from so many timelines and lifetimes by pulling out one thread. It's like you collapse multiple timelines at the same time, and it's so powerful. So go Team Scorpio. But that is also the Scorpio part that remembers who the fuck they are, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm actually Ophiuchus. Right.
And usually people with Scorpius placements, they will be keenly aware at a young age. Typically, this is not something that just happens all of a sudden. There usually is a multi-dimensional recognition, even at the lowest emanations.
I would say it would depend on what planet.
More. That's true. Yeah. If Neptune, maybe not. Well, no.
If it's your sun, yes, because that's a very conscious part of you. For me, it was Neptune and North Node. It's like, no, we're going to park this here because you need to have a level of, I don't know. You need to understand what's normal, because when you go into this shit, it's going to unnormal stuff real fast. So it was like, sometimes you won't go into it until a certain stage of your maturity. That's the word I'm looking for, because sometimes you do have to be very mature and adept to navigate some of the depths of what you're stuck in, or what you came here to unstick. Sometimes it's not yours.
Yeah, you have to be able to.
Sometimes it's your ancestors. Yeah. And you came to unstick the lineage, right? You're like, we're going to unfuck this, basically.
Yeah. And Scorpius can rule lineages because it rules sex. So there's a lot that has to do with sexual reproduction and the coding that gets passed down through that process.
Yeah. Bloodlines, blood lineage. Yeah. Family lines. Yeah. And you think about some of the people who parade around this planet like they own it, and you're like, that's straight up blood lineage codes and manipulating. They understand how to manipulate from the shadows, which is so Scorpio.
Yeah.
So
it can be very manipulative.
yeah. They probably come in with all kinds of fun Scorpio placements. Like, we're just going to come over here and hide this over here and you don't see me. And it's like, oh, but we do.
You do.
What we do. Can't hide it forever.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so the body areas that Scorpius rules over, it's interesting. I've always heard that Scorpio rules over the eyes because they're the windows to the soul. And Scorpio can like read people just through their eyes. I totally forgot to add that on here.
Oh, that's interesting. I would think it'd be more like the feeling body. I associate Ophiuchus more with like the activated conscious, like the eye. But I guess that's where, when that's we were talking before the chat, it's like so much of everything that is Scorpio and Ophiuchus has been lumped into Scorpius. Yeah. We kind of have to start teasing it apart and going, oh, that's actually Scorpius. This is actually Ophiuchus. So, because I always associate Scorpius more with like the feeling body, the somatics. It's so interesting because it's yin, but associated with Mars.
Yeah.
So
which
a little bit of like, take the action to unify your energy, like go unify your masculine and feminine.
Which Janine and I had talked before the episode. And I had mentioned I've always seen Scorpio ruling the genitals, and that's how I've always taught it. And Janine was explaining how Scorpius rules the internal reproductive organs, whereas Ophiuchus is more of the external and pleasure centers. So that is something that we're sort of splitting between Scorpius and Ophiuchus.
Renavigating, yeah. Because technically the male reproductive organs are outside the body, and so is the pleasure areas. But it could be with Scorpius, you got to remember it's more instinctual. So it's like the body knows, the uterus knows how to make a baby. You don't have to think about it. And I guess for guys, it might be like the prostate or something. Mm-hmm. So that's something we're definitely still hashing out, figuring out how that works.
Yeah. So I guess internally it would be like G-spot, prostate. Externally would be penis, clitoris.
Yeah, the thing's more, I think with the Ophiuchus, it's the areas more associated with the orgasm, because that's my joke with Ophiuchus. He's the big O, right? It's like when that Kundalini pops that stuff through your crown, it's like full body orgasm. Like that's Ophiuchus. So that stuff comes from the root chakra area where those pleasure centers are. There's like the Kundalini is, what they say, it's like coiled down there like a serpent. So and it stays that way until you've cleared enough through your energy bodies where it can go through safely without causing psychosis or like actual physical harm. Because some of the stuff in people's energy, I can attest to the, like when that Kundalini activates and you got a bunch of crap in your energy that doesn't want you to activate, it will also try and take you out. Like it is not fun. So yeah, like, if she ever wakes up, hit the
it's see ya. When I had that Ophiucan code, I was just telling Janine this yesterday when we were chatting, that I was on a walk and there was a woman who was literally holding a snake, grappling a snake and getting into her car to take it to the park in the neighborhood and dropping it there. And I was like, oh, what you got there? And she said, oh, a gardener snake. And she's like, it's not very happy. And it was serpentining back and forth. And yeah, sometimes when it rises, there can be some interesting activations. For me, it's usually, I've never had adverse effects.
Yeah, and most people won't. I have to say that. Most people won't. Because their bodies, the intelligence of the body only lets it activate at a certain level, like only through this wall, because you can push through it and it won't be too uncomfortable either physically or mentally.
Yeah.
And it will do Kundalini activations in stages. Most people will notice that they'll have multiples over several years or something until it is cleared through the whole body.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, my biggest thing is like when I have all this energy running through me, remember to rest and relax and not just continuously utilize it. Because that's what it wants to do. it just wants to like do the things that it's saying, like create this, do this, do this. And I need to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So that's my snake grappling journey.
Yeah, and it's funny, the same day of your snake grappling, like I mentioned this to you, there was a book that came across my I saw it somewhere, The Cosmic Serpent. And then the whole serpent mound thing, I'm like, we getting some serpent codes on. We getting the Kundalini codes on for this episode. That's
right.
amazing.
Yeah. I had
It's like
two TV shows show a snake grappler last night too.
That's amazing.
It's like the John Mulaney live episode and then a commercial for some show about a real estate broker. They showed him like holding a cobra, and I just like looked at Zuby. I'm like, look at all these.
Ooh, that's like a
lately, and I didn't know
like
why it was happening at first, and I was like, oh yeah, our episode.
Oh yeah, it's like a crown chakra memo. Cobras, I always find, are like crown chakra sort of memos, top of the head type stuff, because they have that hood up there. That's interesting. Comets, the cosmic serpents, and then the real animal both showing up. It's like we're covering our bases from Earth all the way out to the cosmos with our synchros. It's hilarious.
Should I move to the emanations and go through them?
Yeah, let's do that, because you have a lot of good info to share about that.
We have the 7 emanations of Scorpio or Scorpius. So first emanation is spider spirit, which is considered sort of the lowest vibration, and I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. But it holds the frequency of the lowest wavelength, if that makes sense. So some themes with spider spirit are fear. Most people are taught to fear spiders or just have fear with them. Selfishness, cruelty, solitude, and awareness. So when scorpionic energy is in spider spirit emanation, this is often when they weave webs of deception or constantly get caught in other people's webs of deception. So there can be that victim mentality. And also looking scary is a theme. So trying to look off-putting to others and try to scare them. That's often when people can wear, all black and have like scary tattoos. Or I'm sure people have probably seen like the serpent man that, cuts his tongue and inserts horns into his body and things like that. So trying to look gruesome or scary or off-putting, which to try to scare other people. It's really just a self-sabotaging mechanism of trying to reinforce the notion of being misunderstood or needing to be in solitude. So it's like a huge wall of like, you'll never get to know me. Look, because I'm too scary sort of thing. And just as spiders can catch their prey in their web and consume them, at their leisure, spider spirit emanation is also associated with vampirism. And we'll talk a lot about that, especially when we get to lizard and snake spirit, but there is an aspect of not, of feeding on others, basically. Instead of creating the energy yourself, which is understanding and utilizing and mastering Kundalini, you get it from other sources. And so spider spirit is literal vampirism. Obviously, they suck the blood and things out of things that fall into their web. And that also can get into a lot of bloodline curses and things like that we had mentioned. And also spider spirit is really great at manipulating reality. They can pretty much catch whatever they want, and they often lay traps for others to fall in. So there is this deviousness that can be associated with spider spirit as well. On a more moderate vibration of spider spirit, they are just very aware of their surroundings. So when extreme, it can result in paranoia, right? An over hyper awareness of reality, and that can even lead into schizophrenia of multidimensional awareness without truly comprehending what it is or being able to tune in and out of it. But in general, spider spirit can sort of just feel things in their surroundings and have this acute awareness. We didn't mention, but Scorpio, I mean, obviously as a water sign, extremely intuitive, extremely emotionally aware, very spiritually aware. Just sort of how a spider, if they're in the web and they, something gets caught in the web, for them, what would be miles away, they can feel it through the vibratory aspect of the strands. So definitely understands the connectedness of all things, how one small shift can impact multiple timelines. So there's a lot of sort of butterfly effect with spider spirit. And then the highest vibration of spider spirit manifests as timeline weavers and also masters of macrame. So people who are really good at knitting and crocheting and things like that. And then we get to Scorpion spirit, which most people know Scorpion spirit, eagle, and phoenix. And most people think that there are just three. But with Scorpion spirit, you'll usually see a lot of people who are Scorpios get tattooed with a scorpion. And I say, be careful, because the themes of Scorpion energy are jealousy, temper, impulse control, poison, solitude, and power and strength and protection. So Scorpion is really when the self-sabotaging and isolation mechanisms are most common. So kind of like it's a little bit higher vibration than spider when it comes to that. So like a scorpion in nature, when it's cornered by a predator, it will sting itself. So it will literally kill itself so that one, it can't be eaten because it's now coursing with poison, and two, the predator no longer has the satisfaction of killing its prey. And that's how scorpionic energy can be, like be so self-sabotaging that they would rather self-destruct and hurt themselves than let someone else hurt them. So this can also be sort of a predator-prey dynamic trap that is there. And there can also be an emphasis of the aspect of the hard exoskeleton of the scorpion versus the soft interior. So there's a lot of understanding, like needing to protect oneself through defense mechanisms. And it also represents sort of how we poison our own emotional bodies and others, right? The Scorpio sting is super, super famous, where it's sort of the point of no return. When a Scorpio stings you, it's like you're dead to them, basically. There's no turning back. But then again, there's the self-sabotaging aspect of like, oh, okay, I'm going to sting myself. I'm going to self-destruct. And then they go through a death and rebirth, and it's like, I'm not even the person that you hurt anymore. Haha, see, you can't hurt me, sort of thing. But on a more moderate vibration, Scorpion spirit represents spending a lot of time in solitude in order to act when the opportune moment presents itself. So scorpions are often known to sort of dig themselves under sand and wait until a prey comes. So there's a lot of patience that is there, that can sort of, it's still kind of a predator-prey dynamic, but when you think about sort of jumping at the opportune moment, almost like a kingfisher level of understanding how to move with divine timing, Scorpion is just really, really great about that. And also, spending time in solitude is kind of like hermit mode. You can learn a lot. You can learn a lot about the inner body. It can be a time of, great self-reflection and feeling very deeply and understanding your feelings. Although, as I mentioned before, scorpionic energy is really known to experience a lot of downtrodden emotions compared to uplifting emotions. And so Scorpion spirit is when you really need to be careful of getting addicted to the pain body. And so that also brings into focus the ability and impulse control of grappling poison and understanding when to use poison, how to use poison. But in the highest vibration of Scorpion energy, they are extremely protective and persevering. So they're very self-protective and protective of others. They can also be masters of secret keeping, off-gridding, and poison control. And then we get to lizard spirit. And so themes of lizard spirit can be revenge, cold-bloodedness, selfishness, abandonment, camouflage, and shape-shifting. So lizard spirit functions on an ectothermic reptilian frequency. So because it's ectothermic, right? It's like they have to absorb heat. They have to get heat or light from another source. So it's a vampiric principle. So instead of creating your own light, your own heat for a lizard, right, you steal it or take it from another source. So when I mention reptilian frequencies, that is what I'm referring to. So energy vampirism can be very common during lizard spirit, as is attracting those who feed energetically. So a lot of people with scorpionic placements can be energy vampires, and maybe they don't know it. Maybe they feed off of, hatred, fear, shame, or whatever, but you can also feed off of better emotions, and that's part of ascending. But so lizard spirit typically abandon their young. They have no sense of family or loyalty. So this can be also understanding that just because someone is a relative, you aren't obligated to be around them. So lizard spirit on a low vibration, it's like someone abandoning their kids. On a high vibration, it's like having an abusive relative that you have to get away from. So it can manifest in a couple different ways. And the lizard spirit's very interesting because usually the emotional body is mute. So there's this level of not really caring about other people's emotions to an extent and not really feeling their own emotions. And on a more moderate frequency of lizard spirit, Scorpius can learn how to camouflage, and they often refer to themselves as social chameleons. So this can indicate a lack of sense of self. There can be some narcissistic tendency here, but it also radiates an acute awareness of how to meet one's needs. So there is that level of manipulation and again, being able to sort of read the energy of a situation, and it's like, how can I get what I want out of this situation, and being able to do so. On the highest vibration, lizards are shapeshifters and masters of illusion or character play. And they often do well in positions of power where emotional detachment is necessary. So anything that would be emotionally overwhelming to most people, lizard spirit does very well there. So something like, being in the special victims unit of something, most people wouldn't be able to deal with that, or even working in a funeral home or something like that. Lizard spirit's like, I'll take it on, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to snake spirit, which is kind of the split here. And snake spirit, the themes, which we will talk so much more about in Ophiuchus, Kundalini, sexuality, trickery, and healing. So these are very similar to the lizard lessons, but they begin to be more cognizant when it comes to the use of poison compared to the impulsivity of scorpion, and energy utilization, Kundalini, compared to lizard. So this is still a reptilian frequency, obviously. Snakes are reptiles, and they often involve vampirism, but usually from a higher perspective. So as I mentioned, lizard spirit can often fuel itself from lower vibrations like anger and hatred and things like that, or revenge. But snake spirit, it understands like, okay, I can actually feed off of anything, not just low vibrational emotions. Why don't I start feeding off of joy? What makes me happy? What feels good? Pleasure, things like that. But snake spirit can also be considered a divine trickster. So it often can visit when deception leads to divine information of some sort of some type. So divine revelations and things like that. And the ability to shed your skin is really highlighted here. And that's the thing about the Ophiuchus energy, or Scorpius and Ophiuchus, right? You can spiral upward to Ophiuchus, or you can spiral downward to the poison sting of the scorpion. And it represents that as a snake, most people can get stuck in snake spirit because you can just keep shedding your skin, right? And you just become a fatter, thicker snake, but you're still stuck in snake. Or you can actually rise above and get to higher emanations like wolf and eagle and phoenix. And in order to do so, you have to be able to grapple your snake, which is Ophiucan codes. So in
Yeah.
order to even get to wolf, eagle, and phoenix, you have to master the snake.
Yeah. And I feel like these first four, like sort of the cold-blooded emanations, in the modality soul realignment, there is a blueprint called changelings, like a soul blueprint. Someone would be considered a changeling. And it's basically a very unstable soul blueprint where their focus needs to be on just living a day-to-day life and becoming stable. And I feel like it really is kind of reflected in those first four emanations with that sort of changeling. Like they just do things sort of from an instinctual place where it's like, it's good for me now in the moment. It's like, I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of me. Like that's not the full picture of a changeling, but they have a hard time stabilizing their soul blueprint. They would have a real hard time doing deeper alchemy. So sometimes they would come in with Scorpius placements to just calibrate perhaps to snake, right? And then maybe in another lifetime actually move into wolf, eagle, phoenix, and like up into Ophiuchus stuff. So it can be a multi-lifetime process. Sometimes you're not going to go through all emanations in one lifetime because there's a lot to move through sometimes.
You always have the potential to, though.
This is true.
Depends on how devoted you are to this type of work.
That is so true. Your chart will show you that too. Is like your chart is always a prescription to do all the work in one lifetime if you understand how to read it. It's like, look here, work on this, do that, blah, 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 blah. This is how you clear your karma. So I can say that, yes, if you are dedicated to it, even if what you need to be dedicated to is just having a stable life and telling the truth your whole life and being really honest about everything, like that can be enough to do the thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes those lower emanations, like those insectoid reptilian emanations, are very challenging to just do that.
Yeah. So definitely.
I think that's an interesting nugget in there with like soul blueprint things, and unstable soul blueprints sometimes come through those emanations. And then you get to wolf and it's like, okay, now we're in a warm-blooded animal. Okay, now we're starting to make some progress. Yeah,
exactly. Which one more thing about snake is this is often where sexual energy is highlighted as well. So on the low end, it can be like promiscuity, sex addictions, STDs, obsession with orgasm, and things like that. But on a more moderate to high vibe, it is, using sexual energy with purpose, either for creating something, manifesting, healing, actually creating a child, perhaps. And again, that requires the Ophiucan codes in order to do that.
Agreed.
And snake spirit, which this is a bit more Ophiucan, but probably good to mention. So when you master the Ophiucan energy, when you're able to grapple the snake, that is how you learn how poison becomes the antidote. So you're able to transcend these reptilian frequencies of feeding off others, and you're able to literally feed yourself with your own energy to get to higher emanations. And snake spirit, they're often masters of creation, masters at manifesting, also very sexy, very seductive, and really interested in they're interested in divine information, but again, it often comes with a feedback loop of trickery, of like learning the lesson the hard way, I guess is the good way to put it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that the serpent is, as a symbol, is both like the male phallus and the yoni. Like the mouth looks like a yoni. So it in one animal, it's like the symbol is all the codes are right there. You can make that spiral at this point up into the Ophiucan energy with that kundalini, with that, the coiled kundalini at your root chakra type thing.
Exactly.
And you start learning how to play nice with others.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how wolf spirit starts. So wolf spirit often begins as a lone wolf. So they're usually by themselves. And then over time, and mostly because they just emanated from snake spirit, but that is when at this stage where wolf spirit begins to understand the importance of the pack, how it is healthy to have others in your life. And isolation is no longer appealing. And wolf spirit learns to embody loyalty to those who are truly worthy of their kinship. There's a lot of it's like they recognize, it's very similar kind of to the Leo energy that we talked about in the Leo episode of like, who's your pack, right? Who's your pride that's around you? Wolf spirit is very similar to that. It's like who or what is worth fighting for? Who or what is worth protecting? You know, who am I gonna hunt for and bring things back? You know, who am I gonna trust to keep my back while I'm sleeping, sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
wolf spirit really has a lot to do with family and community, and those just become more and more important as the wolf learns that connection to others is truly key to success. And on the highest vibration of wolf, of wolf, of wolf, um, it's like there's an inherent understanding that when people come together, the result is greater than the sum of their parts. So accomplishments can come very easy when wolf can learn to delegate and become a leader in that way. And oftentimes in wolf spirit, family is seen as something very sacred and chosen and is protected above all. It's like what is like the pack uh is the thing worth protecting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to eagle spirit. So some themes are seeing from a higher perspective, detective life sleuthing. I'm sure everyone's heard of the eagle eye. So that kind of precision, hunting for truth and communication. So the eagle will soar above all the bullshit in order to spot truth from a mile away. So, you know, when facing roadblocks, it's like, I'm not going to try to jump, or it's like, I'm not going to try to move through this blockage. I'm going to fly above it and move on. And so this the eagle can often be seen as sort of the human lie detector emanation. They don't deal with deception. They don't deal with engaging with lower vibrational behavior. They literally will just ascend above it. And this is the most curious of, I would say maybe spider and scorpion are a bit nosy, but eagle is curious. So often likes to, look at the deeper questions and refuses small talk and likes to investigate darker topics or hunting for the truth in some sort of way. So this can be, private detective sort of stuff or cold case kind of things, or again, the bigger questions of like what does it mean to be human? What is happening here on this planet? What's happening here in the universe, the multiverse? And the highest vibration of eagle has communication with nature. So there's a lot of animal totems that often come through with eagle spirit, and supernatural perception, and speaks truth, learns to speak their truth and rise against adversity. And then we reach the final form, Phoenix. So the themes are transmutation, transformation, alchemy, commune with spirit. So this emanation masters the shamanic fires of alchemy. So they are able to die and rebirth with intent. And there is a deep understanding of the laws of nature and the universe from personal experience as well as their studies. So Phoenix understands the infinite and is often a guide to others when they are going through tumultuous periods or having their spiritual awakenings, or when they need some sort of shamanic help in some way. And the Phoenix masters the transmuting of energy that doesn't serve them into energy that does. And the highest vibration of Phoenix is understanding that they are in a lifelong journey of becoming, and even a multi-lifetime process of becoming. And also a very healthy sense of detachment. When you're a Phoenix and you're going through these death and rebirths, because maybe if people don't know, Phoenixes, they burst into ashes and then they're born again as like a little tiny bird, and then they continue to grow. Most people probably know Fox from Harry Potter, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are going through death and rebirth, you can't attach to things, whether it's in one lifetime or multiple, right? You can't take anything with you except your soul. So phoenixes understand like the integrity of my soul is the most important thing, and I'm detaching from anything else than that. And of course, phoenixes are also metaphysical masters and usually have multiple crafts that they engage in.
Yeah, that one's where you're up towards moving into Ophiuchus, like you're moving into Ophiuchus mastery level things there. I can see where you're talking about the eye being associated with Scorpio. I can see in those last two how the feeling body would start to calibrate like a third eye component where you can, remote view things and start doing things, fun things in your astral body, that kind of thing. Because the emotional body is so connected to the astral body, and that also means remote viewing, lucid dreaming, out of body experiences. So I can see how your eye symbolism comes in with those last two archetypes for sure.
And there's also the aspect of being able to read someone's emotions through their eyes, right? Looking into the window of their soul, which is a very scorpionic process because, the true sky don't lie, but also the true eyes don't lie either. So, when you're looking in someone's eye, you can usually tell if someone is telling you the truth or not. And that is a scorpionic, that's
a skill. Yeah.
Scorpio senses.
Scorpio senses. Love it. So true. Yeah, so I feel like the Phoenix really starts to cross over with Ophiuchus. Like you've really got a handle on your Scorpius work, and you start it like in the Ophiuchus levels, you kind of stabilized all that, right?
Yeah.
And you're like Merlin the magician. Like you just walk around, you're like, I am alchemy. So yeah, it's kind of like the last little thing to calibrate that Scorpio coding is like, okay, I got this game figured out. I got it figured out. Let's rock and roll. So,
yep. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide.
Okay. So we keep moving. We still got a whole other side to go.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to be as brief as possible, but it's like there's just so much to talk about.
Well, the fixed stars are basically the same. So once we look at Scorpio's fixed stars, they're the same for Ophiuchus alignments. So that will be one less thing we have to talk about. So archetype: alchemist, shadow worker, dimension diver, ascender, spiral up or spiral down, poison control, seductress. Yeah, there's so much sex, instinctual sex energy that comes through Scorpius. Or seducer. We don't want to just associate it with the feminine.
That's true.
Male and female. There's some sexy Scorpios out there.
Seducer, that's a good. Yeah.
Characteristics.
That is true.
Yeah. Don't leave the boys out. They sexy too.
Yes, they are.
Characteristics of Scorpius: intense, focused, sexual, magnetic, persevering, truth detector. That persevering is straight up facts. Like they latch on and they will not let go until they have figured it out.
Exactly. And they just have, again, most of it can be because they have some sort of distorted program of like, oh, so much pain, I can take it. Strength comes through my ability to, handle tons of pain or tons of, insert negative thing here, right? And they are able really to withstand multiple levels of, hellish landscapes. So their ability to really stay with it is admirable. But again, the whole point is to get to a point of like, I don't deserve this. I need to stop doing this to myself. I need to figure out what's going on inside so that I stop doing this to myself.
In cases where it's like you're doing the alchemy, it gives them the drive to push all the way through it, because it's not always about being a bit. There is a pitfall with persevering if you're in a downward spiral. This is true, but that tendency to persevere can help them push through things where it seems like superhuman feats of willpower are necessary to move through some of the sludge in our psyches. Like it gives them that tenacity to do that. So they can just be like, this sucks.
Strong. Very strong.
I'll get through it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I know there's a rainbow out there. higher
Exactly.
self, what do I got to do? Like, show me the timeline and like and you know, usually like if a Scorpio is activated and they're actively working on their skill set, they've already got their higher self has already given them the memo. It's just a matter of just keep doing the work and
Yeah.
you'll pop through that membrane at some point
Mm-hmm.
and you will literally feel better. You'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, you'll feel it leave your body and you're like, oh, I felt that cord pop off. That's amazing.
Yes.
So you get real good at it after a while and you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
And oftentimes people with Scorpius placements are, given such deep, heavy karmic gunk to move through. And that's why they have to be so persevering, because their to-do list in the dark is just
Is long.
uncomparable. Yeah,
Yeah.
uncomparable to any other sign.
Yeah. I can vouch for that. It's like you just keep on going.
Yeah. And something when I was a tropical, which I still have a Scorpius placement and Ophiuchus placement, but when I was tropical Scorpio, I would always tell myself like everything is temporary. Like emotions are temporary, phases of life are temporary. And that used to be one of the mantras that I would live by when I was going through terrible, terrible things in my life. I would just remind myself it was temporary, and it was a guiding light for me to know like things will change. Another thing that I constantly thought about all the time was, and it, we didn't I mean, we did talk about the membrane of death, but scorpionic energy can be obsessed with death. There can
That's
be
true.
just like a fixation on death. And oftentimes it can be kind of eagle spirity where it's like, oh, I want to know, what is death? What happens after death? So sometimes it can just be out of curiosity, but sometimes it can be, self-harm and suicidal ideation and things like that.
It can also
But
be obsession with the fear of death too. It can
yeah,
be the
that
other
can be.
polarity
Yeah,
too.
uh-huh.
Not just like, oh, this is what in the world. As a concept, it just doesn't compute and they're curious about it. It can also be like, I am terrified
Yeah,
of death.
because
And
sometimes
that
death can
shadow rearing its
find
head. Yeah.
scorpionic energy pretty early on in life.
Yeah.
But one of the
Yeah.
things I used to always be a guiding force for me, and I swear I thought about this daily since I was a little girl. I would ask myself, like, will I regret this when I die? How will I think back on this moment when I die? And I was always like planning my choices based on, what would make me feel the best as I'm dying if I think about this moment. Should I do what I want to do? Should I hold back? And that really, it pushed me through
Gave
so
you
much in my
perspective.
life. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm gonna do it. Like, no regrets.
Yeah.
I'm
And
gonna do it.
that's
I'm gonna find
important.
out. I'm gonna, search, engage.
For sure. Yeah, they have an immense capacity for truth seeking at a high octave, for sure. They want to get to the bottom of the thing. I mean, that's the true drive with Scorpius is like, let's get to the bottom of the shadow. Let's get to the bottom of why my reality shows up this way, why I'm feeling this way, XYZ, whatever it is. Like, let's find out.
Exactly.
They are
And
very
it's like
good
once
at
you get to the bottom
sleuthing.
of it, you can soar to the top. And
Yeah,
that's
you pop
very
through and it's like,
interesting. Yeah. Uh-huh.
there's these very interesting full circle membranes or full circle moments when you pop through a membrane. You're like, oh, okay, that just made sense. And I just literally felt the level up. I'm like, that is so cool.
Exactly.
And it
As they say,
happens in a
the
split
only
second.
way, the only way out is in. That is
Yeah.
definitely a
It's a
scorpionic
Scorpio
thing.
mantra.
Same with like your branches can only reach as far to heaven as your roots have reached to hell, or something like that. Not that we have to use that imagery necessarily. No hellscapes needed ever. But oftentimes scorpionic energy would have to be in those, dystopian timelines, we'll call them. To learn how, and that's usually how it is, especially as spider spirit, of understanding how reality is weaved together, is once you understand that dystopia is of your own making, then you have the foundation to build your own utopia. Those like heavenly timelines. And that is, it's a mission we're all on in one way or another.
Yeah. You're working on things in your soul blueprint that are distorted. Like once you have the concept in your brain of multi lifetimes, everything starts to make sense on another level. And that's so important to come to those kind of realizations with Scorpio energy, because it's key to working through the things. And like ancestors, you know, it makes sense to us as like, oh yeah, I had ancestors, but you really do have to get to, I've had past lives with Scorpio. It really is trying to push you into that remembrance of different lifetimes, memories of different lifetimes, and things that have happened in past lifetimes that have affected your soul blueprint that might need some eyes on it. You know, we might need to work, we not look at this over here and do some cleanup work from that lifetime, because that's not true, right? Like that program is not an authentic thing. It's a program.
Exactly.
So clean house.
It's malleable.
And those things, it's so funny with Scorpios too, because of the water nature, is like those things just show up in their day to day. Like it just shows up as an echo. It'll manifest the timeline. So Scorpios really get a leg up on working on timeline work. They're usually connected to multiple timelines. I want to say, especially the Pluto generation that was aligned through Coma Berenices, they're definitely working on Egyptian timeline cleanup stuff. So very connected with Scorpio deep dives with Pluto there.
Yep.
So that's an interesting generation coming in to do some serious timeline work. Yeah. So some of the shadow of Scorpius is controlling, brooding, vengeful. Oh yes. Can be.
Oh yeah.
Grudge holders extraordinaire.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
Yeah, spewing venom at people can be a problem, but it's usually passive aggressive. Well, it can be aggressive.
I think
sometimes Scorpio is very passive aggressive when it's not. Yeah, when it's really repressed, it's very passive.
It can be passive aggressive until it's outwardly aggressive. It's that Scorpion energy of like waiting for the right moment.
Yeah,
so like truly
like, oh, I get you. I get you.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna get that poison sting in.
20 years later,
exactly. Yeah,
they're back, and you're like, shit. Yeah. Self-destructive, toxic, perverted, obsessive. Yes, those are all very low emanation Scorpio frequencies for sure.
And you know, Scorpio, again, even though you know technically Scorpius evolves to a fire sign eventually, but it's still a fixed sign. So, you know, when it comes to like controlling and all of this stuff, like an obsession, it's fixed. It does not like to change its ways necessarily, right? And that's the problem with getting stuck in any emanation, because the only constant is change. So when you get stuck anywhere, you know, that's when the pain sets in, when you're not when you're not thawing it out with the firepower, basically.
Yeah, the Mars willpower to do the thing. Yeah, bringing that action for sure.
All right, ready for the
let's
stars?
Go. Yeah, let's look at the fixed stars. Oh, can we do the entry exit stars first? Because we have another. We have the chart software graphic with that too, and then we'll do fixed stars.
Okay.
Some powerful fixed stars in this area. Oh my gosh, so powerful. Okay. So the Libra Scorpius-Ophiuchus void is about 3.5 degrees, you know, between Libra, Scorpio, and Ophiuchus. The sun is transiting through there November 21st to the 24th. Officially enters Scorpius at fixed star, and I'm going to probably butcher this, so don't laugh. Desheba. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But that is the first alignment that any planet or sun or the moon makes when moving along the ecliptic path. So that's the entry star if you want to look at it on your sky app. And then transits true sky Scorpio for about 25 days. It's about 25 degrees in the sky from November 24th to December 19th. So it technically exits the last alignment with Scorpius right before winter solstice, like a couple days before winter solstice. A day to, it's a leap year, so it's like a day to 2 days. Exits at Iota Scorpius is the last star. I believe that is a star in the Stinger in the tail, if I'm not mistaken. So that is when it officially exits Scorpius. Now, this is such a complex and dynamic area of the sky. After this, I mean, you really can't not bring Ophiuchus in at this point, but after this, and you can see in the chart, you see Iota 1 Scorpius, that's the last fixed star alignment in Scorpius. Then it moves into this little band between Iota Scorpius and New Ophiuchus. And that is technically just straight up Ophiuchus energy with no Scorpio overlap. So for the last 1.5 to 2 degrees, it's just straight up Ophiuchus, which makes complete sense to me. It's like you've been through the whole blend and now you have like a couple of degrees, a couple days where you're just basking in the Ophiuchus codes. So it's a tiny little window. And then from New Ophiuchus.
From here to here would be Scorpius only, correct? Until we get to
consider it all a blend because technically Yed prior on this chart is Ophiuchus and the first Ophiuchus star. And it literally is a 6-hour difference. Like the alignment with Yed prior is 6 hours before the alignment with the Sheba. So Ophiuchus contains through alignments all of Scorpius. And that makes sense to me too, where it's like all the healing, you know, you're held in healing energy as you're doing all the deep dive work, always. Celestially, that's what it says.
Yeah. And anytime you're in scorpionic energy, you have that ability to get above snake spirit.
Yes. The opportunity is always present.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So it is most intensely Scorpius in the first few degrees.
Because
you can see right. You can see Chi Ophiuchus. That is one of the it's a star in one of the leg asterisms of Ophiuchus. So that's the first bong of Ophiucan codes that comes through really strongly as a planet transits through there. Bong!
That kind of
bong. Not that kind of
dong. Yeah, the first, dong,
the first gong.
The
first resounding Ophiuchus codes that come through where it's like, okay, you've been wading around in that for what, 6, 7, 8 days. Here's a hit of Ophiuchus. Like, can you spiral up here? Right? Can you spiral up here? It's an access. And then you have, it's not quite 2 weeks. It's maybe like 10 days, 12 days. Theta Ophiuchus is the next asterism, leg asterism, where there's a fixed star alignment through the asterism. So there's a second opportunity to spiral up, or you get another resounding, you know, gong of Ophiucan energy insert, like bong, you can spiral up here too. So even though we're kind of like waning out of really intense Scorpius energy as we get closer, it's like there's more Ophiuchus energy available at Theta Ophiuchus. You're more swimming around in, like, you're really in between Scorpius and Ophiuchus, but they're still both blended, but it's less intensely Scorpius. And then, okay, you got the exit Scorpius star, Iota 1. You've got the end Ophiuchus star, New Ophiuchus, and then for about 1.5 degrees, that's the Ophiuchus Sagittarius void. So there's no Scorpio influence over there. It's just Ophiuchus Sag, which is kind of interesting because it's like we are officially, okay, shedding all that Scorpius things. You got a couple of days of recalibrating into this Ophiuchus or Sagittarius fire energy, which is, you know, after doing the deep dive and doing all the alchemy, it's like you kind of come into these broader perspectives of things, which is so Sagittarius, like synthesizing information, seeing bigger pictures.
Your perception shifts.
Yes. You might lose some limiting beliefs along the way. Like, I just had an out-of-body experience and my life is forever changed, like those kinds of moments.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why I only included these 2 areas on this constellation entry exit date, because there's really no Scorpio Ophiuchus void at the end. It's Ophiuchus Sagittarius. So that's that one.
Cool.
And then we can talk about the super fun fixed stars. Yeah.
All right. Let's
super powerful. Super powerful.
There we go.
There we go. So that royal star Antares, like after we go through the death membrane and the claws, you know, the offensive end of the scorpion. Well, actually, they're both kind of offensive. The tail's a little more subversive, but the claws are definitely the most offensive end coming at you.
Yeah.
You get through all that
tail is
stuff.
definitely defensive. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely defensive. You get to royal star Antares. I'm gonna need to see the numbers at the end. There we go. Sorry, I know it kind of moves your or
Here,
covers up your control area.
There we go. Yeah,
so that's on the 1st of December.
Yeah.
Yes, on the 1st of December with that alignment of royal star Antares. So it's a real calibrating moment. Like, how did you navigate all that deep Scorpio stuff that we surfaced for you? Are you ready to make some multidimensional shifts? Right? Because there is definitely like a remember who the fuck you are star.
Yeah.
all aspects of you.
My chart ruler's here. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah. Yeah, you came in with that awareness, kind of. That's amazing.
I did.
Yeah. So that's a testament to your chart ruler.
Yes, it is.
And then we have an alignment with Rastaban on
that's the one that says the bong. Bong is from Rastaban, man.
Rastaban, man. That's actually one of the eyes of Draco. We have 2 Draco eye alignments through this area of the sky. Edmund being the other Draco eye.
Yeah.
They're both the eyes. Yeah. So I can't remember if Rastaban is the left or the right. But yeah, they're both. You can look at the constellation and figure out if it's the right or the left. It looks like Rastaban is the right eye from if you're looking at it. Right so that's hand. On the 3rd of December. So a couple super powerful alignment. Well, actually, all of them are really powerful. You can't pick just one in this area of the sky. The Great Attractor in Norma is actually a little bit outside of the asterisms of Norma. It is not. Trust me, I have looked and looked and looked, and I can't even really find Norma constellation. It's below the ecliptic, but the Great Attractor doesn't show up anywhere. I mean, I've Googled it. I can't find a number for it. It's so frustrating. There's a number. Let me see if this shows up. Hang on, let me find my note.
Oh, it's in Norma right here. Yeah.
Yeah, Norma. It's the Carpenter square. So you're getting like the Masonic circling square memo there. See if this shows up. ACO 3627. I think that's a nebula in Norma.
Looks like 3627. No, it doesn't look like it.
I think it's a nebula in outside of Norma constellation that the Great Attractor is close to, but I can't find a designation anywhere for where it actually is. So, but I do know from like zooming in, like there's that Scorpio perseverance. It's like, I will find where this is on the sky up. And I found it and pinned it. And then I looked at when the alignment was, and it depends on if it's a leap year or not, but it's usually the 6th or the 7th of December every year. So that's the Great Attractor. It's the kind of the core of the Laniakea supercluster is what the Great Attractor is. So that's part of Super Galactic Center in Virgo is part of the Laniakea supercluster. It is not the main part. The Great Attractor is the main part, but Super Galactic Center is a very powerful spot too. But that's how big Laniakea is. It spans a huge amount of the sky in the chart. So then we've got Sabic and Ophiuchus on the 9th. And that, for me, I put that in the chart because it's almost exactly opposite Nihal and Lepus. So it's kind of like a blue-ray opposition star because I consider Nihal to be an indicator of a blue-ray soul in a chart. So I'm always looking at this star to be like, if somebody's got something conjunct here, they've got something unintegrated at Nihal, and it means they're kind of like a hidden blue-ray. So that's always a fascinating star to look at. And then Rosal Hague is the head star in Ophiuchus. That alignment is on December 14th. So kind of like a fascinating opportunity to calibrate like your upper clairs, like the head chakras, right? That's maybe like a good third eye activation window. Or if you got head stuck, you know, if you're like constantly stuck in your thoughts like that, maybe a day where that comes up to take a look at too and do the healing on it. So that's a powerful alignment. Yeah, there he is. Right there at that top triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And then, undisputedly, one of the most powerful stars in the sky, Shaula and Scorpio is up there in my top 5. Very powerful, not always on the high vibe way. It's usually an indicator in a chart. So you got some serious cleanup work to do. There's some serious things in that shadow body that is poisoning your experience, basically. So that's a challenging spot. It's very powerful. You can make, because of the proximity, like where it is, and you can see the Milky Way there, is like you have a huge opportunity to do sort of like, what did you call it? Like the poison is the medicine type.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
poison
a
control,
dosage
poison
issue.
Yeah, you have a lot of opportunity to do the cleanup work there and like suck the poison out, basically, because it's right before the alignment with galactic center. So if you have natal placements here, it's just like, just know the plan is like, we're doing a huge amount of cleanup work. It's like clearing out all that toxic sludge, all those past life. It can be like things that come through like past life curses and grudges. It can be stuff in your energy that's keeping you in lower astral grids. It can be really challenging to do the cleanup work on it. And you might have it, you know, would definitely show up to really challenging dreams, nightmares, things like that. Not that you would have them all the time, but you would probably get severe pops of like, oh, there was that nightmare again. You know, like, oh my God, so terrifying. And that can be that shadow body stuff coming up. So I have to say with Shaula, it's usually something, because it's the tail and, you know, the self-sabotaging mechanism kind of the scorpion can have, it's usually something you're tangled up with energetically. It's not always just being done to you. You got to kind of get your ass out of victim mode and be like, all right, I am going to go do the cleanup on this. What have I agreed to in a past life? I'm going to go unfuck that right now. Right. And you just start walking down that path and doing the cleanup work. So it can be a long walk. You just keep on going. Yeah, it can be a tough one with that line. Trust me, my moon is here, so I understand.
Oh wow, yeah.
And with some of the stuff I've shared with Sachi, I have realized how nefarious some of it was. Like weird curses, blood magic, sex rituals, like stuff that's really dank and underworld consciousness to exert control over the creation fields using blood codes, blood magic, and stuff like that. So for people who incarnate here, you probably either understand this. If you have placements here, you either understand this or you are somehow connected to it. And it's like you got to figure out what that connection is and start clearing that shit out. Because when you do, like, this is one of those places where it's like you start pulling out those timelines and there is hundreds of thousands of phantom matrices that just fall down. They just blip out of existence because they're using your energy. You know, you're connected in with that. So you pull your energy out and they just collapse. And then the world changes. You literally watch the world change around you when you do this work at that level. And then, you know, we've got galactic center. So you're priming yourself to
do you remember the code for galactic center?
Is it not showing up?
Isn't it M87?
I think that's Virgo.
Oh, that is Virgo.
Gosh, I don't remember.
Like right here.
Yeah, it's in that little dark spot. Actually, zoom out because it's right above the scorpion's tail. Let me see where the tail is.
No, it's not.
Can you turn the ecliptic so it's level? Left to right. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in that black spot that you were looking at with the bright star. It's in that pocket. Galactic center's in there.
That's what I thought.
Yep. So it's technically galactic center is within Scorpio alignments.
Somewhere over here. Butterfly cluster? No.
I don't know I don't know the number designation off the top of my head. But I do know that's where it's at because I've looked at it. I've looked for it a lot.
Yeah, I remember it's like
Yeah.
kind of where it's being aimed at by Sagittarius
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's somewhere here, y'all.
And that second star, you see the tail of Scorpio and how there's that spot to the left where it's like two little double stars. No.
Oh, these, yeah, the
no,
singer?
no. It's
This?
down. No, it's on the far side on the left.
Left. Oh yeah, this way. Okay.
So
This?
no, lower,
This?
right below it, right below those two.
These
The
two?
big, there's a bigger one.
Oh,
I wish I
these
had a point.
two.
Nope.
These
The
two.
one above it and the
This
one
one?
to the left of it.
And this
And the
one.
little teeny tiny. That is the little teeny
Oh, okay.
tiny one, I think, is technically the last star in Scorpio. So
Oh, okay,
technically it encompasses, that's what I'm trying to show is by alignment, it
Yeah, this
encompasses
one.
galactic center. That's it. That's
Gotcha.
it. That's Iota 1 Scorpius. Yeah. So, and you can see those two stars really clearly when you're out stargazing. Like I'm always like, wow, cool. Look, there they are. So yeah, with the Shula work, you're priming yourself to reconnect to source, right? To higher dimensional fields, because that galactic center alignment is about 3 days after. So that's most significant with transits, like real-time transits though. In a birth chart, it's like you would look at progressions, but depends on what planet it is as to how fast the progressions go. So, and then the last star within this area is Edaman and Draco, the other eye of the dragon. So we got 2 dragon eyeballs. So lots of conscious dragon energy.
Yeah. Which is interesting because dragon energy is utilized to cut through very dense energy and help lighten the grid, so to speak. That's often why they're seen depicted during wartime, because they help cleanse the grid so that literally other things except battle basically can happen somewhere. So it makes sense with all of the dense and layered energy that Scorpius moves through that there's inherent dragon energy to help clear it. Because when you go to some of those lower dimensions, like, woo. Yeah, I wish I knew about dragons when I was a Scorpio.
Yeah, the
like,
high emanation.
Yeah, it really probably would have made things easier.
Well, you know, the way it plays out is like there's always a reason why it's happening, and it all happens perfectly.
I'm so thankful for my life path. Yeah.
Yeah, you do understand it once you get to a level of consciousness, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now.
But for anyone out there in those lower emanations, start to work with dragons. They will definitely help.
Yeah, just know that you have a higher self and a soul team that's here cheering you on, and they'll help you as much as they can. But you're the master in this field. Like, you came in because you have this crazy intense skill set where you can dive into that stuff and just blast it with light. So and do all the, it's not even just, it's about holding your field of light while you're also, it's kind of like, I don't want to say ingesting shadow, but you reintegrate your shadow parts, and it's like you're cleaning them as you go. So you're just this amazing, you can do 2 things at once. I swear, Scorpios, when they get the hang of it and start moving into Ophiuchus, they're literally like shadow ninjas. They're like, they can dance with that shadow, and they can shake off all the stuff, all the programs, all the fear, all the things. And they're like, there you are, dust you off. Okay, time to integrate you. Welcome home. Exactly. You know, it's like pulling them out of some really sludgy, energetic places, lower astral dimensions. They go into some challenging pockets. Definitely in those phantom matrices to be like, hey, what y'all doing in here? Who thought this was a good idea?
Exactly.
All right. Do we have anything else on Scorpius? I think that's it.
I think that's
Scorpius.
All right.
Good times. Time for Ophiuchus. So,
all right.
Notice the dates are basically the same. Ophiuchus is basically 2 days longer according to fixed star alignments than Scorpius. So they overlap almost exactly. Ophiuchus holding Scorpion, all that healing energy. So this is where things start getting interesting when Sachi and I talk about house systems. It's also interesting from the mode and element. And we're also going to have a live hash out discussion about chart rulers with Ophiuchus because so many things to talk about there.
Yes, there is.
So I'll start with the easy one. It's actually about 27 degrees plus or minus some minutes in the sky. So it's about 27 days out of a year is Ophiuchus alignments. Polarity yang. I don't know. We might even need to reconsider the polarity when we hash through the chart ruler stuff because maybe not. I feel like it needs to be a complement to Scorpio.
Yeah.
Scorpio's yin. I feel like Ophiuchus does need to be yang, but I think the chart ruler is a yin, is a feminine chart ruler. So we'll talk about chart ruler,
which we know that Ophiuchus is ruled by Chiron. That is the main ruler of Ophiuchus, no doubt about it. But we have been discussing some other, co-rulers of Chiron, which we did mention there is probably some sort of feminine energy here. Originally, Janine had been utilizing Mars because in order to heal, right, you have to do the thing, was what she had mentioned. And I said, well, if Scorpius is co-ruled by Mars, would Ophiuchus be ruled by Venus? Because in order to, Pluto plus Chiron do that alchemical healing stuff, you sort of have to have both input of masculine and feminine. But Ophiuchus doesn't necessarily give off Venusian vibes necessarily.
No, we were both like, nah, it doesn't feel quite right.
When you think about how you have to love yourself enough to heal, that is part of it. And I guess the Venusian aspect of connection to nature, kind of like the Taurus-y part of it. But we were even thinking that Black Moon Lilith.
No, Asteroid Lilith.
Asteroid Lilith.
Yeah,
Asteroid Lilith would be more Ophiuchian. So it'd be Asteroid Lilith and Chiron. So you guys will have to let us know what you think.
And I'm still expanding out on that because Ophiuchus is it's like all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again, but by God, Ophiuchus can do it. And I was like, I feel like Ophiuchus was probably ruled by the planet in our solar system that was obliterated and is now the asteroid belt. So I feel like it's ruled by the asteroids, period. Because basically that planet was a yin planet. But for some reason, that even came up in a conversation today, like Mars is associated a lot with Maldek, like Martian souls and Maldekian souls have a similar energy frequency. But I think that's because there was like a masculine sort of, I don't know, things went south with the masculine energy. It got too left brain. They didn't revere life enough. And it got so out of balance, like they basically blew the planet up. Planet got blown up. So I feel like the asteroids rule Ophiuchus, and it's really that healing journey to reassemble that feminine consciousness. So you probably are working, when you do Ophiuchian healing work, you're probably basically energetically reconnecting the asteroid belt. So you could maybe say the asteroid belt. Because the only 3 asteroids I really use are Chiron, asteroid Lilith, and Juno, because Juno shows me how you're coming together in hierogamic union. And that's so much what Ophiuchus and Scorpio are. They're like the integration of the polarities. So if Ophiuchus is a yang polarity ruled by a destroyed yin planet, there's one click of the polarities, and then Scorpius is the other way around. It's a yin polarity planet ruled by like Mars. I consider Mars to be the main ruler, and then Pluto is kind of like a modern ruler. But it tracks because it's like you got to go into the deep subconscious to find all those fragments. So in that way, they complement each other exactly in polarities, and you have to be able to do both for them to go click. And then there's if Ophiuchus, I feel like Ophiuchus is not a masculine archetype. We'll go there.
Yeah.
I feel like Ophiuchus is a feminine archetype because on the other side of the chart you have Orion, so it also, the polarities also have to match across the chart. So Ophiuchus being feminine, Orion being masculine, and then that polarity goes click, and it's like you've just done multi-level alchemy right there, just like ding 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 ding. Oh my god, it all just clicked together. So I feel like they have to track across the chart too with the polarity. So I do feel like Ophiuchus is feminine, and that makes sense with the serpent energy. Like most of the times serpent energy is associated with serpent priestesses, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be a priesthood. Yeah, it could be a priesthood, but their understanding of that serpent energy.
Plus, even the modality and element is very, etheric. It's metaphysical. So, which is often associated with the unseen, the feminine, the void.
Yeah, for sure. That plasmic modality, like Ophiuchus and Cetus, both kind of emanate that plasmic quality. It's transcendental, or is I don't like transcendental because that's associated with transcendental meditation. It's transcendent.
Transcendent.
You're going into a place, to transcend the level, the incarnated level, or the understanding of like, this lifetime, that lifetime. It's transcendent in that way. You're like, oh, I've had many lifetimes. There's many stations of identity to integrate, that kind of thing. Look at all these parts of me. Well, hello, everybody. And you have to do it from a consciousness place. So sometimes the things in Scorpio and Ophiuchus energy is like the things have to be undone at the level of consciousness that they were done. That's so key. So if it was done very consciously with malicious intent, it has to be undone with conscious awareness. You can't just be like, oh, I'll just walk the karma on that, because that won't be fun.
Exactly.
There can be some not so great repercussions from that. You might actually want to be like, I'm going to go into the Akashic and check the records on that and see what I can do about that to cancel, clear, delete, recode. So yeah, the element of ether also speaks to the integration of the masculine and feminine. I feel like it's got to happen at the Scorpio level. It's got to happen at the Ophiuchus level too. And it's got to happen across the chart with Orion. So if it tracks, it tracks. I don't know. We're going to have to think about Cetus like that too.
Which we classify as plasmic water.
I consider as like, this is like plasmic ether. I don't know. I feel like Ophiuchus might be plasmic fire and Ophiuchus might be plasmic water, because it has to, the polarity has to be.
Cetus would be water and Ophiuchus.
Oh yeah, Cetus.
Yeah, okay.
Cetus. What did I say?
You said Ophiuchus.
I said Ophiuchus to both.
Yeah,
Cetus.
But that would make sense
water.
Considering that Scorpionic energy evolves into a fire sign. It would really make sense with the Phoenix symbolism as well.
Yeah. And it just keeps integrating, and it's like a chain reaction up in consciousness. It's like boom, 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 boom. You keep leveling up. So you'll see it in the chart. I don't know. We're going to have to think about Ophiuchus too, because what is Ophiuchus? Well, what's interesting about Ophiuchus, because technically he doesn't cross the ecliptic, but when a planet transits along the ecliptic, and especially this, it's amazing when the sun does this, because you can see it in the chart. He looks like Prometheus with a torch. Like that ball of fire sitting on top of his club. I'm like, oh, it's a torch. Holy shit. And that signifies the Polarian alignment with our pole star.
Ah, interesting.
That's how people would know.
Ophiuchus does cross the ecliptic, though.
Technically, no. Not if you look at the
his back leg.
Not Ophiuchus, Orion.
Oh, right. Okay.
Did I say Ophiuchus again?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You did. That's why I was like, wait,
Orion doesn't cross the ecliptic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Orion. Ophiuchus does. Yes, of course.
Yes.
We wouldn't be talking about
Ophiuchus, right, by definition. And maybe that's what else we should have said, since Ophiuchus is such a controversial sign, is that Ophiuchus crosses the ecliptic. A zodiac sign by definition is a constellation that is on the ecliptic, aka that means the sun moves through the asterism, the sun moves through the constellation, and the sun moves through Ophiuchus. It does.
Yeah,
so
twice
by
actually.
definition. Yeah, so by definition it is a zodiac sign, which I'm sure if you're listening to this episode, you probably already know it does not move through Aries. So technically Ophiuchus would be the 8th sign. But
yeah, and this is where you
count Aries for all purposes at this point. We're counting Aries, I guess, as one.
No, I count Aries Cetus
as one, yeah,
as a void.
It's like the first.
I don't count it as.
It's
I don't
the 0
count
point. It's kind of like
honestly. It's
like
the 0 point. It's the 0.
That is what we should call it. 0.
Yeah,
so
the 0.
0. Yeah.
Because you have to have that. It's like when you recode the Fibonacci sequence, the reason the Fibonacci sequence is a not inverted, but it's a distorted geometry is because it doesn't start with 0 or something like that. And you have to go 0, 1. And then, and then you go. And it shifts the spiral when you plot it just slightly, but it also shifts it to be like a free energy generator type energy instead of spiraling into oblivion kind of thing, or eternally spiraling out into whatever. It's inclusive versus sort of, I don't even know what the right word, but it implodes. Basically, the other one implodes at some point.
Interesting.
The Fibonacci, the fib of Nochi implodes.
The
fib. So, and the Christic spiral starts with 0, so it has to be in the zodiac somewhere. It's like it's got to be coded in there, and I think they did. It's just tropical astrology is manipulated. Either that, or 2,000 years ago, the ecliptic actually moved through Aries,
which is interesting. That means that the first house should technically be the 0 house.
Well,
things are clicking for me.
Yeah, we're gonna have to sit there. I'm still not sure where I land on house systems, because I think it's so connected to where you're located on Earth. I don't think equal house is really the thing, but it's the best thing that I know how to use until I really study some of the other house systems to decide which one I like. But I think it really depends on your latitude and longitude as to the house system. And there's a lot more for me to look at with that.
Yeah,
but right now,
when I did my deep dive on house systems, I discovered that different house systems are better for different things that you're trying to achieve. As you know, I'm a chart hacker, so it's really about like, okay, what's your goal and what's the perspective, the view on your chart that we need to have. But for natal charts in general, I landed on 13 equal houses.
Yeah. But that's where I have we got to consider like 0. Well, 0 is like Aries Cetus. I just consider it 1. You could go back and call it 0 if you want to.
I like,
but then that
like
makes
it card in tarot.
Yeah, then it makes it the 12 and the 13, which is funny because it's 0 to 12, but it's 13.
Exactly. That makes sense.
Funny.
That makes sense.
So I don't know.
Anyway, we don't want to get sidetracked on it.
Yeah, that's a discussion for our house, our house episode on houses and stuff. But at this point in the slides, like from Ophiuchus, Sagittarius, on Aquarius and on Capricorn and all that stuff, there'll probably be 2 designations for houses, because I still use 12 house system. Sashi uses 13 house system. So you guys can feel into that, but it's interesting to know this is where it diverges. It's not the additional houses, and I know you say this all the time, Sashi, and it's so true. The additional house or sign is not the 13th, it's the 9th. That's where, if you're going to add it, it's the realization is it's like it's here where you can either consider Scorpio and Ophiuchus one house, or you can separate them into 2 houses. I consider them one house. And like you don't do Scorpio without doing well, you can't, I guess you can technically, but
Yeah.
I tend to lump it into one because I'm an optimist. I'm like, if you have Scorpio placements, you'll get there. You can do it.
I separate them because it can be utilized together, but in chart hacking, it's a very different territory whether you're doing scorpionic or Ophiucan things.
And this might be a good time to bring up the question in the chat. Melody asks, I would love to ask about a Scorpio North node open to both house systems.
You'd have to tell us what house it's in first.
That's true.
But yeah, we can talk Scorpio North node. Let us know, Melody. But yeah, in terms of the housing systems and Ophiuchus being the 9th, right? Because Ophiuchus is between Scorpius and Sagittarius. So Ophiuchus becomes the 9th sign, Sagittarius then becomes the 10th, Capricornus becomes the 11th, Aquarius becomes the 12th, and Pisces becomes the 13th. So that's how it shifts. In the 12th house system, Ophiuchus shares the 8th house with Scorpius. In the 13th house system, Ophiuchus gets its own house, which is the 9th.
Yeah.
And then the mutable fire associated sort of with Sagittarian energy would then be the 10th and so on. So I actually have some articles on this. I have articles open to the public, 13th house system that explains everything. It's on my website. We should probably drop it.
Let's link that in the description for this episode.
Yeah, I also have some
very relevant.
like 7 Emanations of Scorpius article and all about Ophiuchus that we can also link there. They're all open to the public. So if anyone wants to learn a little bit more, it will be there.
There'll be some light to moderate reading.
Yeah, I think
deep, intense,
like,
and interesting.
7 to 10 minute read or something like that.
Power packed. Yes.
And until we hear about the North Node house, I'll talk a little bit about plasma in terms of choosing plasmic as the modality for Ophiuchus. So the way that I tend to teach how to understand modalities is fixed is like a solid, a fixed sign is like a solid. A cardinal sign is like a liquid, and a mutable sign is like a gas, right? Mutables, they don't like to be contained. They're always bouncing around, sort of, off the walls of however they are being contained. But typically like to roam free. Cardinal energy is like water. It will always move to the path of least resistance, and they're very good at moving on an X and Y plane. So for example, if they hit a hurdle, they're able to navigate around it. Whereas fixed energy is sort of like an A to B, right? If they get a, like hit a blockade, they'll usually, hit their head on the wall until the wall crumbles down. So when we think about modalities, Ophiuchus doesn't really fit necessarily any of them. And when it comes to state of matter, plasma is the 4th state of matter, which is widely accepted in the scientific community as well. So looking a little bit into what plasma is. So in physics, it tells us that when atoms have at least one orbital stripped of electrons, and that causes an electrical charge. So if we think about an electrically charged object, that is basically the energy that it holds, or the energy capacity, or the vibe of it. And we will talk later about how Ophiuchus rules over the energy body. And so literally how you can pick up on a vibe, how you read the energy of a room, that is Ophiucan in nature. And even ether, right? Ether is the space, I guess we'd call it, the space that energy moves through. It's kind of like the cosmic womb of which we are all inside. And so reading that, the plasmic imprint of things would be reading like the vibe or the energy. And when we think about biochemistry and plasma in biochemistry is the fluid-like portion of lymph and blood, and it carries salts and enzymes, and it creates, by carrying the salts and enzymes, it creates the body's electrical gradient. And so when you think about your own electrical gradient. That's your own vibe. That's your own energy signature, your auric body. And even when we think about the lymph and blood and how it's involved with lymphatic processes and, blood filtration. I don't know why I couldn't get that word out, but both of them are really linked to healing, right? Oftentimes when there is something not right, it's usually because the body can't drain the toxins out of the body. And that's done through the lymphatic system. So the lymphatic system will get rid of toxins. It will get rid of just anything in the body that's really not supposed to be there. So when we think about healing and sort of the vibe of our own aura, that is very much plasmic as well.
Yeah. All those arc body layers. Mm-hmm.
So for anyone who isn't familiar with plasma, I wanted to give a little bit of background on that. For what it is, how it does. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day when they were delineating modes, they were probably like, they didn't know about plasma, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Like lightning is a plasma.
Yes.
Solar flares are plasma.
Yeah. So by physics definition, it's often described as like a gas of ions, or like a soup of electrons and protons. It's like the subatomic particles that haven't necessarily grouped to form something particular yet.
Mm-hmm.
Should we move to the next slide?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Ophiuchus symbols, the rod and the staff. I consider they're slightly different. If you look up Ascension Glossary, rod codes and staff codes are two different things, but I feel like Ophiuchus is probably a master of both. So rod and staff symbols, the snake grappler, Kundalini, and the rainbow serpent. Giving you all that good rainbow snake energy. Get Kundalini activated.
Oh yeah.
The phrase "I heal." It's like bringing it all back together. Mm-hmm. And then the body areas. This is where we were talking about in Scorpio. Ophiuchus is the generative organs, but it's more connected with the pleasure centers and the orgasm and the auric body. How that when you have an orgasm, like I bet it's incredible to see what your aura does when you have your physical body has an orgasm. I bet it is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Probably turns like all kinds of fun colors.
Mm-hmm. A rainbow.
And I think I remember you saying, somebody was saying to me, I think it was you, is like when people die sometimes, as they're, basically crossing the rainbow bridge, the higher self, the guys will flood the body with orgasmic energy to help clear some of the gunk from the current lifetime. And that's the way they do it, is the way you would describe the energy that pulses through the body is orgasm. Because they're trying to lighten the load as you cross the barrier, basically.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, that wasn't us that had that conversation.
Okay.
I would ascribe it as like a spontaneous dimethyltryptamine release, which can feel orgasmic. So it's like psychoactive. Yeah, psychoactive, which Rick Strauss, his work showed that during near-death experiences, is presumably death as well. Psychoactive amounts of DMT are released from the pineal gland to help you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Through the membrane, as you say.
The body, this is what I think a lot of people need to remember, and you can do it through breath work, meditating, like you have some of these peak experiences. What we consider peak experiences is like the DMT release from the glands. Mm-hmm. But the body has the exit strategy out of the body as well. Like it's all coded into the blueprint. So I think that's part of it, is like, I remember Eckhart Tolle or somebody was like, some of the purpose of doing this deep work is to die before you die. And that's not just some fancy words about doing Scorpio alchemy. It's like to have the actual physical experience of what the body does when you cross over, but you're still alive. And you come back from it. And like, if, people who've had ayahuasca experiences and like, what is the frog medicine, MDMA or something like that? Or maybe that's something else. There's like frog medicine.
Bufo.
Bufo. It's called Bufo.
The
But
toad has DMT, I believe.
yeah, see, you're going into biochemical states that mirror like what the exit strategy is for the body. And then a lot of people have intense fear experiences initially, and then they process through some of that stuff. So that's very similar as to what you experience when you cross over, except you're doing it in small doses, controlled doses, hopefully with a facilitator, and you can clear that stuff out. So some of the healing work with Ophiuchus too can be like we were talking about pre-show, is like tantra. Have a partner that you practice tantra with, because you are cultivating with a partner that kundalini energy, and you can clear a lot of stuff and clear a lot of karma when you work together with somebody that you trust and love. There has to be love involved. It can't be like one night stands. That usually doesn't bring any helpful codes to the party.
Be destructive.
So yeah, very sexy sign. It's the high vibe of all the physical sexy stuff. It's like understanding the energetics, knowing how to circulate your microcosmic orbit in your own body, working with your aura, doing all those fun out of body experiences, that kind of stuff. So,
Yep.
It can be fun working with Ophiuchus energy.
Yes, it can. Are you ready to go to the next slide?
Let's do it. Okay, so the archetype is the healer, the activist, or the advocate. Oops. Like actively doing things to do the healing, doing conscious healing, right? And once you understand that, it's probably the archetype probably goes out to help others, because there's a little bit of a distortion in the Asclepius / Ophiuchus mythology, but he was the guy who couldn't heal himself, so he healed everybody else. But that is definitely not the thing. The thing is, heal thyself and then help others.
Yeah, exactly.
You helping
Which we
yourself.
Should probably talk a little bit about that mythology as well. We didn't mention that, which is typically
before we jump into that.
Uh-huh.
With Ophiuchus and Scorpius, healing yourself is healing others, because you're pulling shadow body stuff out a lot of times out of the collective. So a lot of times Scorpio's work is internal and unto themselves. And once you get through that layer of work, you'll have this knowledge where you probably will share it, but it's not always necessary. It's like your cleanup job is your contribution a lot of the time. So let's go into some of that if you want to. Or do you want to, let's finish the list and then we'll talk about the mythology. Where did I get to? The advocate, the metaphysician, like seriously, the Merlins live here. This is where the wizards live. The Gandalfs are Ophiuchus. Herbalists, so apothecaries as well, which is kind of a crossover with Virgo. I feel like Virgo has a lot of those herbalist tendencies. And the soothsayer. Characteristics: holistic, free, aware, fringe, definitely fringe, healing, and immortal. They understand everlasting, immortal, and eternal, which are not the same, but they understand both.
Yeah.
Shadow, eternally feeling poisoned, stuck in time, marginalized, alienated, gaslit, and maybe like spiritually just hollow. Like I don't feel anything, I don't feel connected to anything. You're here to reconnect yourself. So that can be a shadow aspect. Just feel stuck. So yeah, let's talk about the mythology of Ophiuchus.
It's interesting. I'll use the terms of the planets, I guess, to tell the story. So Ophiuchus was a demigod created, and the father was Apollo. And Ophiuchus was going to be murdered as a child by Apollo's twin. And so Ophiuchus was hidden with Chiron, and Chiron at the time was the greatest of healers. So Ophiuchus supposedly learned his healing powers from Chiron, who was a almost
A
like
centaur.
Centaurian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was a
Centaurian.
centaur.
And so then Ophiuchus learned, actually surpassed Chiron's ability to heal. And Ophiuchus could actually not only heal any wound, so was able to heal anything from anyone, but also was able to raise the dead. So had the elixir of immortality, which supposedly was from the poison of Medusa's head. That's how Ophiuchus learned. So,
That's
exactly.
hilarious.
Yeah, Algol stuff.
Algol stuff. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And
And
so,
Jupiter is aligning with Algol tomorrow. Actually, today, because
ah,
it's the 10th.
well,
Very
very,
timely.
yeah, exactly. It's so funny
The
because,
poison is the medicine. Yes.
uh-huh, because so this started happening and Pluto, Lord of the Underworld, which again is not a bad thing when you pass away, some spirits need to go there. So Pluto went to Jupiter, who was the god of gods, and said, hey, this Ophiuchus character not only is stopping people from dying and coming to the underworld, but now people in the underworld are freaking disappearing. They're going back to life, and it's bad for business, basically, was the argument. At first, Jupiter was like, we're not going to do anything about it, but eventually agreed to kill Ophiuchus. And so Jupiter and Pluto murdered Ophiuchus, and supposedly Jupiter, in order to honor Ophiuchus, put him in the sky as a constellation because out of respect. But when we think about Ophiuchus, there's so much like conspiracy and murder, right? Of like getting rid of the one who knows immortality so
Who knows
that
how to heal? Yeah.
exactly heal and offer humanity immortal life. It's very similar to the creation codes that are taught in Judeo-Christian mythological history as well. Of like, oh, they ate from the tree of knowledge, so they have this knowledge. If they eat from the tree of life, which would be, immortal life, then they will live forever. So better get them out of Eden.
So let's demonize the snake, because don't be
Exactly.
firing up that Kundalini, yo. We're
Right.
out of here if they do that.
Exactly. So it's a purposeful shadow program to take people away from healing and stop humans from being immortal, which I'm sure most people are aware. There's documentation of humans living hundreds, thousands of years.
Yeah. Oh, that's
So it's
dank.
basically like it's a death trap,
With
basically, is what happened
Jupiter
with
in cahoots
Ophiuchus.
with Pluto, that feels
I know.
really weird for Jupiter. Like there's some kind of manipulation going on there. I
I
hadn't
would
heard that
agree.
part actually.
Yeah.
Where Pluto
Well,
and
it
Jupiter.
was Zeus, right? And Zeus is associated with Jupiter. I'm just
That's
using
true.
the
Yeah, and
planetary.
Apollo would be the sun. So like I didn't know that part either. Really, that if you could, and in I think Greek mythology is known as Asclepius, which is a terrible name to
Asclepius.
pronounce.
Yeah. I know.
Asclepius.
That's why I was just like, I'm gonna say Ophiuchus.
Oh yeah, but it might help people find, if they want to research stuff. You could look up Ophiuchus or Asclepius, which is, oh gosh,
I think it's
ASCLEP. Oh, is it AE?
Yeah,
Eh.
AESCL.
Maybe I'll Google one and stick it in the description.
I write about it in my All About Ophiuchus article. But yeah,
I don't know if it has
the Ophiuchus energy is, I believe it does. Oh yeah, it's AESCULAPIUS. And so it's riddled with this conspiracy and murder and even gaslighting to an extent.
Yeah, it does feel gaslighty.
Yeah, because Ophiuchus, obviously, right? People call it the 13th. It's really the 9th. Clearly, the sun transits through the constellation. It is by definition, by astrology's own definition, it is a zodiac sign. And yet the mainstream world wants to deny it. They pretend like it's not there. If we look at certain ancient astrological artifacts, Egypt is coming to mind. They purposely scrub Ophiuchus off. They will, like put something over it like now, like literally right now, if you go there, there will be things painted over it or it will be covered. And it's like, why is this being hidden? It's like, oh, because if you don't know about Ophiuchus, then you're stuck in the freaking shadow realm with scorpionic energy, you know, with all that dark,
You're
dank,
stuck in the lower
yucky stuff,
astrals.
right?
Yeah.
You can never ascend past snake spirit if you don't know how to grapple the snake. And even, you know, a little bit more interesting about the fact that it was, you know, Jupiter and Pluto, because Ophiuchus is nestled right between Scorpius and Sagittarius. And Pluto is the ruling planet of Scorpius, and Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. So the sky definitely has, you know, tells part of the story, even though my Jupiter would never, even my Pluto would never.
Yeah, your Pluto would never.
Yeah. When you think about some of these, you know, lower dimensional vibrations of planets, there's clearly something going on. And it's interesting that you mentioned the changeling aspect of Scorpius, because I have felt like stolen identity to be part of Ophiuchus codes, which it's very interesting. When I first started diving into Ophiuchus energy, I actually had my wallet stolen with my ID, and Zibby's account got hacked in the same night that we started looking into Ophiuchus stuff. So it was so interesting that both of us, sort of got.
It can be stolen identities, cloned identities. It can just be manipulated, all kinds of identity. Too. Yeah, exactly. It can be some shiz up in there.
Exactly. And for anyone who's not familiar with changelings, it's basically when someone is taken and a double is basically put in their place. One of the most famous examples was I don't remember exactly who she was, but she was a famous woman, or her husband was famous, and the little boy, their child, went missing, and the police like gave the boy back, and she's like, this is not my son. And it clearly wasn't, you know, based on birthmarks, and her son was circumcised and the child they gave her wasn't. And it's, again, gaslighting comes in, of like people trying to convince you, and other people trying to convince you that a person is who they are not.
Yeah.
And even when we think about Ophiuchus, it's interesting because the healing rod was given to Mercury, right? Usually Mercury is seen with that. So
I feel like that's a little, there's a lot of things in the Mercury archetype that to be calibrated through with that, because it's a double. The Mercury rod is a double serpent, which can be argued as like the Ida and the Pingala channels. This is true, but the rod of Asclepius is a single serpent on a staff.
Okay, yeah, Mercury usually has
so
two.
Mercury, you know, that's kind of a nod to the twins, but it can, there's a lot of shenanigans that can come through the planetary archetype of Mercury.
Yeah, a lot of that was during the Hermetic magic.
All the emanations of Thoth, like hijack Ruby Sun DNA, and that's why most people's clairvoyance is turned off.
Yeah,
because there's so much shiz in their energy, and in generally in the astrals, like their higher sensory perceptions are just hijacked. So their higher selves just keep it turned off. It's like not safe. There's too much smack talk down here. If you heard all this bullshit in the lower astrals, you would be cuckoo bird. So we just turn it off. And that has to do, you know, it all kind of ties back to the asteroid belt for me, the destroyed planet Maldek, and why I kind of am reconsidering like the asteroid belt as the rulership of Ophiuchus. It's like, it's that obliterated yin energy of a whole planet. It's like a planetary consciousness and all the souls that were incarnated on there. So Saturn plays into that. It's interesting with spider spirit. Like I consider really high emanations of Saturn like rainbow spider. It's like grandmother spider, like weaving, like how you're saying, like weaving very high dimensional reality streams, that kind of thing. I can see that. And I also get, it's interesting, like the dynamic of the archetype for me is like rainbow spider and elephant is Saturn.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, elephant totally makes sense. Yeah.
So it all kind of ties in, when you think about like karma and how Saturn kind of holds the memory of that
Yeah.
planet, because it's kind of the next yin archetype out, planetary yin archetype out, past Jupiter kind of thing. So she's kind of, that's why she gets a bad rap, because she's literally holding the memory, the soul memory of the whole planet consciousness of Maldek and all the souls that incarnated and all the fractured consciousness. And it's like Earth doing double duty, matriculating that through its matrix. And that's why it seems like Earth is shit show Earth half the time. Because there's so many fractured consciousnesses that come through to put themselves back together.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to do it over multiple lifetimes. So of course you don't want to hear the smack talk of that. So again, there it ties back into Mercury and distorted Mercury codes. But it is interesting. Like, I think with a healed Mercury archetype, you do get into that hierogamic union, your higher self stuff, the higher sensory perception, the clairs come back online. You can connect outside of time and space and do all the astral traveling at liberty kind of thing. But
yeah, and when you do your healing, your mercurial self completely changes, because your daily life, your mental health, I mean, it's definitely all connected, and it's a two-way street too, right? You change your daily routines, you do that Virgo stuff and that Gemini recoding, and the Ophiuchian energy is so much easier to embody and anchor.
Agreed. That's why I thought it was interesting that the herbalist was like a Virgo crossover. I'm like, there's a lot of angelic templates, higher dimensional Virgo things, or higher aligned Virgo things, that is a good I don't know, template or role model.
Yeah.
For like where Ophiuchus wants to go.
And Ophiuchus, as the metaphysician, can be someone who is, an energy healer or somatic healer or energy or emotional healer and things like that. But
sound
healing, but they can also be things like herbalists, traditional, what you would consider a traditional doctor, I guess, maybe more Eastern medicine, but
acupuncturist,
acupuncture, massage therapy.
I would say Reiki people.
Yeah. And even things like healing, astrology and various divinations, that kind of ties into more soothsaying and things like that. But it still can go a traditional, or I guess more mainstream healing route. And I think we've talked about this before too, is like healing isn't just that kind of healing too. Sometimes maybe publishing, a book about your story, or, sharing a thought, can help somebody heal. So, healing looks different on everyone, but it can be very, very literal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is like deep soul healing, deep soul healing. You got to take an active participating role in it with Scorpion and Ophiuchus.
Yeah.
You hear to walk that walk.
Exactly. And in characteristics, I had added fringe because I find Ophiuchian energy is sort of on the outskirt of society. I almost put ahead of their time. But it's not necessarily that, because they're actually aligned, no matter, divinely aligned and in divine timing, no matter what. But usually there is a certain amount of opposition to whatever message or modality that they are sharing with the world, the medicine that they are bringing to the world. And that can often, on the shadow side, push them to feel alienated and marginalized if they don't have a proper sense of community, or
if they're just not integrated enough. I mean, like, if you know the thing in your bones, like being that fringe doesn't freak an Ophiuchus out. Yeah, they're just like, it's weird. And but it's, with Ophiuchus, it's based in experience and science. Like, it's such a combination of like, I have walked it. It's like I understand the spirit and the earth, how like all this stuff, how it all just completely makes sense. And it's so transcendent. Is like, you couldn't stop me from talking about it. I don't care who thinks I'm crazy. This is what is real. Let's talk about it.
Exactly.
So they're very, that's when I think of them as the advocate or the activist. It's like, they will not pull their punches with their woo-woo stuff. They'll be like, they're kind of like an Aquarius in that way. Aquarius can be just a little bit weird about it sometimes. Like, they're kind of goofy weird, but an Ophiuchus is driven. Because they've been to the Scorpio realm where they're like, they've done the persevering thing, and they'll be like, this is the thing, the world needs to know this.
exactly.
Yeah, and they usually are bringing a lot to contribute. Like they
It's like
have
cutting
this,
edge technology
yeah,
in some sort of
yeah,
way, no matter what that
yeah,
tech looks like.
yeah, earth shaking kind of
Yeah.
stuff, soul healing things. When
Yes.
you think
Yeah.
about like matriculating out an asteroid belt, like a just obliterated planetary consciousness, like you have done some serious work if you've come and pulled those pieces back together for yourself, especially for people who may have had incarnations on Maldek or like are Maldekian star seeds, what you would consider a Maldekian. Those people, whew, good gravy, they have done some legwork to bring their pieces back together. And with the shadow too, when Ophiuchus people are kind of stuck in shadow, I feel like the stuff physically manifests for them in a way where, I mean, it's like they wear the wound, because that's very Chiron.
Yeah,
It's like,
true.
yeah, if you have humiliation wounding, the body type for that is morbidly obese. You will tend to be morbidly obese. So the book I really like, that would help anybody if they've got Ophiuchus placements that they may be in some shadow aspects, is Heal Your Wounds and Find Your True Self. And there's like, she kind of categorizes basically 5 soul wounds, and she gives you a visual of the body type of each. And I swear, like every client I've worked with, I'm like, it is so freaky accurate. And if you kind of fall somewhere in the middle, it usually means you're a combination. Like, say you're really running humiliation, but you're also running injustice. You'll look like a normal, pretty healthy looking body type. But when you start digging, if you're really doing soul searching and you're like, no, there's something I need to look at, but you look normal, it's like you're a combination of something. Now, there are people that have resolved that stuff and they look normal and fit because they're not running anything. So that's also something to consider. But it's a great experiment, and so like a sociological experiment, to read that book and then like just go to the mall, just people watch. You'll be like, ooh, injustice, humiliation, this, that, the other, codependency. Oh my God, there's abandonment. And I have found it to be very true. Like the body just reflects what the energetic of the wound is. And she just happened to figure it out. I think she was really into Louise Hay's work, she was very similar. So she just expanded on Louise Hay's work. So that might be another good person to look into for that. But they do physically tend to reflect whatever the wound is. And it could be mentally or physically, like it could be psychosis that they're trying to calibrate through fields of things. And it's just like the crazies here all the time. I don't know how to deal with it. Or it can be extreme anxiety or that kind of thing. It's like your clairs are trying to calibrate, but part of you is stuck in dimensional fields that you need to go do soul recovery. Basically, you need to figure out what it is. So
yeah, I would definitely add to the shadow, just like diseased. It's like if you can't heal, you refuse to heal, then you're just chronically sick, or you identify your sense of self with some sort of sickness or disorder or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah,
Again,
identifying
like
as
an identity.
disease.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's like
that's very true.
It's not cute. And it's not part of disease or disorder should never be part of your personality. Like it's really
that's a failure of language too.
Yeah,
That's a failure of language. Yeah, to say I am sick. No, you are not. You are a soul in a body.
Exactly.
You are pure joy and love coming from the fields of light, right? You are experiencing sickness. So some of it is language,
or like you're healing through it. Or
I am healing through.
You say like I am healing. That's it.
It's okay to come to a level. I have found this to be helpful for me to not deny the sickness. I'm experiencing sickness. Thank you. What is that an echo of? Let's go find the root cause. And I use it as a superpower, being like, there it is, not denying it, and also do the reframe. The reframe is important.
When I was going through that cycle, then I completely agree. But the level that I feel I'm at now is the sickness doesn't come because I catch it
Yeah.
beforehand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
you never have to actually go into sickness. You don't have to. Like it's always a choice in one way or another. It's like maybe you haven't healed the thing that needs to be healed, but eventually you do get to a place where you don't have to affirm, like there's nothing to deny because it's not there.
Yeah.
I guess I don't really know how to explain
It'll
it,
show up
but
in
like,
different ways. Like it'll manifest through a dream and you get to address it and head it off. Basically, it never materializes a timeline where you have
exactly.
to
Yeah.
process
You
it
don't
out
have
that
to
way.
go
I
through
do
it. Yeah.
agree with you there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So if it shows up, it's not
It's about
to
like
deny
denying it.
It's
Right. It's about denying it before it can even form.
acknowledge,
Yeah.
reframe,
Or
go find the
rejecting it.
root cause. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
reject it. I'm not sick. I'm not sick. Because you'll just, you'll consent. Anyway, language is tricky.
Yeah, there's no such thing as no
English
or
is
not.
especially tricky. Yeah, when you get into quantum understanding of things, yeah, it's always and both. It's not ever, never, negatives in language or
Yeah.
like.
I always say there's no such thing as anti-manifesting. Like you can't manifest something not happening.
Right.
It's like where your attention goes, it's going to happen. You can't say like, oh, don't drop.
I don't want to get sick. It's
right.
like
It's like
sick
you're
is still part of the equation.
Right.
I feel healthy.
Exactly.
That's the reframe, right? That's the reframe. So language is funny sometimes. You have to learn how to navigate it. I feel like Ophiuchus, that would be part of Ophiuchus's lessons too.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
How you talk about your body because your aura is going to reflect that.
Yeah.
Don't talk shit about your body. It's listening. All your cells are responding to your own sound fields through how you speak through your throat and also what you're thinking, your internal dialogue. So
yeah,
be mindful.
Yes, indeed. Love it.
Do you want to move on to the constellation points?
Let's do. And we'll just bring the chart up too for the fixed stars.
Yeah, I got it right here.
They're the same, but I just want to reiterate that. So Ophiuchus constellation and entry dates. This is pretty much the same as Scorpius, but with a couple extra days added onto the end. So there's still the Libra, Scorpio, Ophiuchus void. Same dates there. The entry star is Yed Prior, if you want to look that up on a Sky app or on software. So as you can see in the screenshot here, entry star for Scorpius and entry star for for Ophiuchus are basically within the same degree. Not much space between there, only about 6 hours if you actually calculate it, which I did. Because I like stuff like, I nerd out on stuff like that. So a planet will transit an alignment with Yed Prior before it transits an alignment with that entry star of Scorpius. So all of Scorpius is held within Ophiuchus. True sky Scorpius is about, true sky Ophiuchus is about 27 degrees, so that's about 27 days. Interesting that the sun exits Ophiuchus on the winter solstice, is it not?
Yes, the 21st usually, it's the solstice.
So that I think is something interesting that's coded into that constellation for sure. And on that day, the sun moves into the Ophiuchus Sagittarius void for about a day and a half, from the 21st to the 22nd. So technically, on the 25th, the sun is in Sagittarius. For Christmas, basically the return of the sun, which means the days start getting longer, actually happens in Sagittarius energy. Totally interesting.
That is very interesting.
And it's the opposite on the other side of the planet. I mean, it's still in December, but December for them is summer. So I always think about the reed in the other hemisphere. I'm like, oh, that's in the middle of summer. Wonder how you would translate that differently. Like, it's the waning, the sun's starting to wane, the days are getting shorter. in the southern hemisphere. So anyway, it's probably just a celestial marker. Like, I try not to read too much into it, even though they probably packed a lot of layers of things in there, but it's like celestial marker. Got it. So for us in the northern hemisphere, it's very symbolic of, hey, we're getting more daylight now. Spring is coming.
Yeah.
That's my N.
All right, ready to go to the stars?
Yeah, let's go to the stars. Let's go to the stars.
Go to the stars.
So these are all the same. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, yeah. Do we need to go through
And
them
that's
again?
it. No, I'm not going to go through it. I just wanted to put it up there and just say, hey, guess what? They're all the same. That's how significant these two are as a combo read. As a blend. It's a blend all the way through. I think the percentage of the blend shifts as a planet transits the ecliptic, like obviously more Scorpio in the beginning. The tail of Scorpion is well below the ecliptic. For us in the northern hemisphere, so there's less it's less direct blast, I guess, but that tail kind of tries to whip around to get its last say. Here's a little bit more. I also think it's interesting that the tail kind of looks like a pedestal for that galactic center alignment. I'm like, maybe that's the recode. Is the tail is like a pedestal or something? I don't know.
Well, it's like, it's the medicine or the poison. They're both the same thing. It just depends on how you take it.
Could look like a chalice almost. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
see that.
When you're looking at, I'm going to have to look at the constellation again and see if I can see it that way in the actual sky. Looking at the sky, I was like, I can see it there, but can I see it when I'm actually looking at it? Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting
and it's also
marker.
interesting that Aquila, which is the eagle, is also soaring right above.
Yeah, a little bit over to the left. Yeah, it's on the other side. What's fascinating is it's on the other side of the Milky Way. So it's like after you've made the reconnections to galactic center, you start cruising through those Aquila alignments, Sagittarius and Aquila, and Corona Australis, like that southern crown. So it does speak to like, oh, you've hit this spot.
Yep.
And I think we talked about this on a transit episode, but you hit the spot where you make these source reconnections. And then as you continue to transit through there and you spiral, if you've spiraled up, then you will have some of those higher clairs. You'll be able to see things from a higher perspective and you'll start soaring, that kind of thing, zooming out on things.
Yeah, it would be interesting for those of you who have Scorpius placements, if you have any other alignments with Aquila or maybe even Phoenix constellation, it would be interesting to see, if you have any of the emanations that are also in the sky. Also, there's a couple Sirius.
Sirius, Canis Major, Canis Minor.
The doggies.
Is there there's not a spider constellation, is there?
There isn't, but we associated Matrix as a spider star.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's interesting.
So that would be interesting.
The Black Widow.
Yeah. And then obviously the Scorpion is there too. Serpents is the snake we got up there.
Draco low emanation Draco can be reptilian, like lizard, but high emanation, obviously dragon.
Yeah. So yeah, let us know if you have any alignments with that and you have Scorpius placements. And if there's any association with you, really working on a specific emanation. Like for me, I have a placement within, I think, a 1.5 degree orb of the matrix. So I've been working with Spider Spirit for a very long time.
Okay, that makes
but
sense.
I'm a timeline, weaver. So I finally reached that place, but when I was younger, it was a different story.
You worked through it. Sun conjunct Pluto, it's destined. You're full circle in that Pluto matrix. It's gonna happen. You can't stop it. It just is a testament to how deep you dove in another lifetime, right? It's like you've done a good portion of cleanup work. You came to embody it in this life and walk it. So anchor it.
I
So
am
does that bring us, that's the end of the Ophiuchus slides, right?
that.
I think so.
Yes, indeed. That brings us to
The
the
true
end.
sky. Well, we
Um,
do have a clarification on the question
oh, sure. Hmm.
from Melody. She says, what were we looking at? Scorpio North Node is in the 11th house with a tiny smidge in the 12th. I guess that's for a 12th house system. So that would be 12th and 13th for you.
Hmm.
Feel free.
Okay. Let me get my bearings for a second. Um, let's see here. So yeah, North Node in Scorpius. So in general, with North Node and Scorpius, it's going to be a lot of the themes that we just talked about with Scorpius and Ophiuchus. So there will be an inherent need to move through tons of shadow to transmute a lot of energy and to make sure that you're spiraling upward. So a lot of it, so North Node as a calibration mechanism, right, helps your soul expand and move towards get out of your comfort zone, right, in order to pursue your soul's mission. It helps you keep moving forward so that you don't get stuck in the past or get comfortable with South Node stuff. So in order to push you to continue to grow and expand, it will require tons and tons of shadow work, definitely recalibrating the pain body, understanding your own emotional body, making sure that you clear stuck emotions or just keep your emotional body clear. There should be no stuck emotions to clear, right? If you're at that level. A lot of that, there can also be various like sexual relationships or sexual experiences that happen that can keep you on your true north as well. If it's in the 13th house, there's definitely a lot. It would be a very extra dimensional, multi-dimensional spiritual process. So a lot of it can be literally for the sake of getting into spiritual alignment. So there can be a lot of spiritual practice that is involved there. There could even be some maybe drug use at some point as well that can shift you to your north node. It can also be understanding the illusions and delusions that others are under that push you more towards what your soul's mission is. And it can be because like, oh, well, these people, they're delusional. They don't see what I see. And if it's in the 13th house, it's because you literally can lift multiple layers of especially with organic energy that is really able to go to multiple layers of the underworld. If it's in the 12th house, it's a little bit more altruistic and focused on community and humanitarian work. There can also be like an emphasis on utilizing science, technology, engineering, mathematics in order to accomplish whatever it is that you're moving through with that scorpionic stuff. But really, I mean, Scorpio North Node, no matter what house it's in, is a pretty, that's an intense true north. That is going to
Yes, it
point you in
is.
the direction of the path of probably most resistance most of the time. There's a lot of density that you're going to have to move through and a lot of darkness. So, with like chart hacking, something I would recommend is like always, remember that there's light out there as you're going through that super dark stuff. And once you even see the tiniest pinprick of light, to keep moving towards it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was going to say with these placements in a 12 house system, if it's 11th, 12th, you got some serious skills. You got some ninja skills in the skill set, in your toolbox. And you came here to do some serious work. Because for me, that's the house of like the collective. 11th house would be like collectives, group stuff, which can be challenging when it's the North Node stuff is like dive into the group stuff in Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
That can be really you can be dealing with like collective shadow pockets somehow that you're connected to, and that can be hard. 12th house is like the subconscious, like you're not really aware of it. But anytime the North Node I feel like is in the 12th house, it's like opportunity for a full circle lifetime. Like you're going into those realms, those transcendental realms, those Piscean, I'm going beyond this matrix kind of thing, into the spiritual realm. So I do feel like North Node in that place if it's in the 12th house, there's some work to do. You gotta dive all the way in and pop out the other side, but you can definitely full circle it in this life. So
yeah, and
get your alchemy practice, of choice selected, because North Node, like my North Node is at Antares, my North Node's in Scorpio in the 1st house, and it was like you are going into your consciousness to do this recode, and there's a lot of shit in here. And for me, it didn't happen until my midlife transits, till something pinged it off. It was the eclipse in 2017, but I think it was a North Node eclipse. So with the North Node,
which was the eclipse that we were both in the same
that's
place.
Right, we were in the same place
years before we knew each other. We were in
the
same town for that eclipse.
Yeah,
it's wild.
So it may activate through an eclipse cycle, or an eclipse. If it's a North Node thing, I would curiously watch the North Node eclipses, whether it's a solar or a lunar. Like the lunar ones would tend to bring up more of the emotional sludge. The solar ones would send you shooting on your life path, but it kind of feels like your life path is to go find all the pockets of emotional sludge. So a lot of times your higher self, if that's your job that you came in to take care of that, it will not activate that early in childhood, because like I was saying in the Scorpio section, you need to have a level of competency, mastery, knowing who you are in this life, feeling stable as a human kind of thing, before you start really popping into some of those things. So a lot of times it will wait to activate it.
And I would also say that this North Node, even though your North Node is something obviously personal, right? It's your own true north, it has such an impact and involves other people inherently. Because if it's in the 13th house, for me, that rules the collective consciousness. So that would be like literally all of creation. And if it's the 12th house, it would be a particular group of people, what I call a class consciousness.
Yeah, it would kind of
no
show
matter
up
what,
as
there's other people involved.
Yeah, there's other people involved. It can be otherworldly.
It can be, yeah.
Whether you call it the 11th or the 12th is still describing the same thing, because the shift is at the 9th. But yeah, definitely it can show up in friend groups, social circles. It can be that close to you, or if you're working at a bigger scale, like, it can be class. You call it class consciousness. I forget what I call it, but I'm referring to the same thing. It's not transcendental 12th house or 13th house consciousness. It's not beyond consciousness. It's still within circles of human things, basically.
Yeah, for me, that'd be 12th or tropical 11th is like a particular, like a group think, a particular group of people.
Yeah, group think. Yeah, that's it.
12th and tropical or 13th in the 13th house is like
transcendental.
The all, the all. Which
I will still.
You could it's a particular group of people that you'd be working with. Whereas if it's the 12th, 13th, then you could do it by yourself, but it's still, you're connecting to the collective consciousness, like of all creation, sort of.
Yeah, and I will lump in like human collective. I will lump in collective consciousnesses in the 12th house, because I don't feel like that's necessarily transcendental. It takes a particular skill set to zoom out to that level, but I feel like the Neptunian, Piscean 12th or 13th house things is like beyond, it's God consciousness. It has nothing to do with like your little circle of human collective or morphogenetic fields or planetary consciousnesses. Those are still 11th house for me.
I take collective consciousness as like the collective of all, like with a capital A. Not
Yeah,
just
that's the difference
humanity's
in the
consciousness.
language we
Yeah.
use. We use
Yeah.
the word collective slightly
Mhm.
differently. So
Mhm.
yeah, but we mean the same thing, even though we're using a
Mhm.
different word for different
Exactly.
things. Yeah.
Mhm.
So just to let y'all know,
Yep.
we're not over here contradicting ourselves. We just
Yeah, no.
we've labeled
Uh-huh.
it differently.
Correct.
I would also be very, very interested, or maybe it's for you to look at what alignment, what fixed star alignment the North Node is in Scorpius, because that will give you a whole nother layer of information. Is it
Yeah, true.
Antares? Is it the Great Attractor? Is it aligned with Shaula? Like those are three completely different reads, all in Scorpio,
Right.
or all through Scorpio-Ophiuchus alignments. So
Mhm.
it does make a difference. The fixed star, is it a Draco star? Is it Radohig? You know, that'll give you more clues as to where you're at in the game. But yeah, it's Magic City. It's Magic City in this lifetime for you,
Yeah.
lady.
Uh-huh. Go, Melody.
Go, Melody. It's your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question.
Okay.
I have Chiron and Pluto in the first house, both almost conjunct. Woohoo. In Ophiuchus, opposing Sun conjunct Venus. So there's Chiron and Pluto opposite Sun conjunct Venus. Okay.
That is in the first house, so then opposite would be
I'm guessing,
basically like
okay, it's an
70.
Ophiuchus, so it's probably Scorpio Ophiuchus blend. Again, it would be
Mm-hmm.
what fixed star is it at? It's going to really nuance that read. If it's in
Well, yeah.
Ophiuchus, for me, it's in like a little tiny 2-degree sliver. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you mean like a Scorpio Ophiuchus blend.
Well, so
It's
much of
really
your
helpful to see charts
uh-huh.
when we're talking about this area of the
Yeah.
sky because the
Uh-huh.
reads are so can be wildly different.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, it's
still, just
interesting that Pluto and Chiron are there, which are the ruling bodies
yeah,
of Scorpius and Ophiuchus. So they're, and because it's in the first house, it's like your art body, like your art body is going to change and heal so much over time. And that's such a big thing about understanding your sense of self and you as an entity separate from, I mean, not separate from source, but
as a
as an
fractal.
individual, as an individual, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as a fractal of source. And making sure that you embrace change and embrace your healing journey and really kind of put it front and center because I imagine it's probably pretty close to your ascendant as well. Um, and with that being opposite Sun and Venus, I really feel this like of how do I
You're
put this?
seriously multitasking. Like that's a big multitask. It's a big
Yeah,
ask.
it is. And it's like there's a delicate balance between loving who you are with Venus and Sun and knowing that you need to change. And I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest balance of that opposition of making sure to balance those energies of like you can still love yourself and heal and change. It doesn't mean that you love yourself any less. Which I know some individuals go through that of like, oh, if I think that I, deserve a better job, then I, like I feel shitty now because I feel like I deserve something better in the future, sort of
Yeah.
thing. So it's like you put yourself down in order to, um, when you understand what you truly deserve. So yeah, I think it's a really delicate balance and like understanding that the best way to change is to love yourself where you're at now. And that is a really great foundation for the alchemy of becoming.
Yeah. And that would most likely put the Sun conjunct Venus in the seventh house. So it's definitely about
Yeah.
relating to others with that.
Uh-huh. And not
With
getting like
grace.
lost
Yeah.
in
It also
relationships.
it would depend on how conjunct Sun and Venus are. Is it
Mm.
Kazemi? Like is it exact or is there an orb? Because anytime it's not Kazemi, a planet is not Kazemi, like it's not an exact alignment with the sun, there's usually some aspect of that planet doesn't feel seen. So if like Venus is 1 to 5 degrees on either side of the sun, there's some aspect of Venus that the divine feminine that isn't going to feel seen. It's going to feel outsunned, basically, right? Because if you were observing that in the sky, you wouldn't see Venus. You would only see the sun because it's like hiding behind it. So that's an important thing to note. Is like you might not feel seen by others if that's in your seventh house. Like your feminine energy doesn't feel seen in your personality matrix, right? The soul, the personality matrix, the personality lens. So that's a really fascinating thing to noodle on. And that Chiron conjunct Pluto feels pretty intense.
Yeah,
the soul wound, the Chiron, it's definitely in that personality
Pluto
matrix,
level.
because the first house is kind of like the personality lens before it materializes into a body. It's very subconscious. Pluto, Chiron, the key is in the deep subconscious, and it's parked in the first house because you're going in to address it. Like when things are in the first house, it's so much like a memo to yourself, is like, deal with it. Deal with it.
Yeah, Janine and I are both very first house dominant.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah. For sure. And when I kind of started understanding the first house that way, it can also mean, well, it means these things are parked in your personality matrix, whether it's like for Chiron and Pluto, it feels like shadow work is on your docket of things to dive into. For me, it was Sun and Venus, which it was Venus combust, not Cazimi. So I was like, oh, yes, I see. I'm here to integrate my light and make my divine feminine feel fully embodied and part of the soul matrix. And for you, it feels like I'm here to pull in all those shadow aspects and go do that Chiron dive. It doesn't sound so fun compared to Sun and Venus in the first house, but my Sun and Venus is opposite Algol, so it's not so fun either. It's like there are some deep hidden things. It's funny how charts will park stuff where it's like, on first glance, it looks like a lovely read, but then you start reading fixed stars and ghost points across the chart, and you're like, this is a very intense chart. It tends to change the read. So honestly, having Venus and Sun opposite this makes it kind of feel like when you understand that seventh house place is to maybe accept help through others, like space and grace, right? Like there can be soul support through others. Maybe the lesson is to allow that kind of thing into your life to help with the shadow work that you're moving into in the first house. Maybe you feel alienated, right? And it's to go, where's that running from? Because that's not true. I have a great support system, and I am open to receiving soul level support through others. So again, it depends on what fixed stars these two are hanging out at, but like that's a very dynamic and interesting placement for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And with Sun conjunct Venus, so with the opposition, I always say oppositions are kind of like batteries. You have to have a feedback mechanism to sort of loop the energy back and forth to keep it balanced. So you don't want to go one way totally or the other. So like Sun and Venus, making sure that you shine your light and access the vibration of love as much as possible, and balancing that out with doing that deep, deep Pluto work and the healing. And it's literally like love and light, right? Venus
it kind of
Sun,
is. Yeah, it is. It really
like
is.
on the opposite side of like healing and shadow and darkness and poison.
It's a nice balance to the
it
thing in
is.
the first house. It's like
They
you parked it there
definitely
on
balance.
purpose.
Yeah, they balance each other out quite nicely, but wow, is that a delicate dance?
It really is.
And
you are here to integrate both.
Yeah. And the biggest thing I would say, because Chiron and Pluto are in the first house with Scorpius+/Ophiuchus, is like, do not get lost in the darkness, and like don't mistake your darkness for who you are.
Yeah.
Don't mistake your shadow for who you are. Stay away from like dark entities and energies that want to siphon and yeah, go more towards sun Venus when that happens.
Yeah, lean on that
Like
sun
other
Venus.
people who love you, other people who help you shine your light, who remember how lovely you are and loving you are, and you know, warmth and fun and joy and all that sun goodness.
Yeah, it's to balance it in a responsible way too, because I could see that going kind of like that could be the Chiron Pluto is like, I depend on everybody else outside of me
Because I
for
don't want
that
to do my
support
shadow work or
because I
something.
don't
Yeah.
want to do the avoidance stuff, the Pluto, because there's things in the Pluto matrix that you don't even know that are affecting that sort of place. So watch out for that. Don't lean on it too much in an external way. I mean, as much as when it's in balance, it's like community support, right? You have healthy community support. When it's unbalanced, it's like you're emotionally, what do they call it? Transferring onto everybody else. Like they teach us that in professional practice and massage is like, don't transfer onto your clients emotionally. You're the professional. You're here to provide a service. So it was like an interesting lesson in boundaries and semi-permeable membranes kind of thing, like having appropriate membranes, boundaries, stuff. So it's like, if you do feel alienated, okay, noted. It's probably coming from that Pluto Chiron. The thing itself is the key into the Pluto matrix. Go figure out where it's coming from. Obviously, I say this every episode, my favorite modalities for that: body code, emotion code, get right to laser with laser precision, find out what the issue is and go pull it out of your template and watch the matrix shift. Literally watch the friend group show up.
Exactly. Right. And I was going to say, assuming it's in the 7th house, like your personal relationships should bring out the best in you. They should be loving and be full of light, because with Pluto Chiron in the 1st house, like you got your own shadows to deal with. You know, surrounding yourself with dark people who just want to sit in darkness and stuff, like, no, you can do that by yourself. And other people should help sort of lift you out of that.
Yeah, I think part of it is to know that there is a support system, use it appropriately.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Use it to help dive in deeper, which is interesting. Fascinating placement.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating opposition. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Cool.
Right.
I hope that sufficiently gives some insight onto that for you, Junie Pepper. Cool. We still have 7 people in the chat. You guys are such
thanks
I love you guys. It's amazing. Hardcore true sky crewers.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Anything else we want to summarize? Anything?
I think we hit on everything. Just make
That's
sure.
a huge download. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's a lot of information. But just make sure you sign up for your spot at the summer solstice. Get those snake codes.
Get those serpent codes. Get up into that Ophiuchus vibe. Heck yeah. Yes, all that info will be posted in the description. All crying emojis. Junie Pepper, we love you.
Yes, we do.
You got this. Just remember, Scorpio, like if you have Scorpio placements like that, it's because you have a skill set, because you are an absolute baller on a soul level.
Exactly.
So part of it is in the human vessel to get yourself together and remember who the F you are, and that you're a badass and you're a good ass and you came here to do that work.
Yes. Good ass.
So you're an expert. You're an expert in this.
Exactly.
So remember that. And that's what helped me when I realized, oh, it's because I'm really good at this. Like, oh, and it was like, I could feel the shadow, entities quivering in their boots. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I got one lesson from my higher self that set me on that timeline. And I was like, it's game on. So ask for those lessons if you're at a place where like you're seeing the pattern, you don't know how to resolve the pattern. Ask those quantum questions to your higher self. and it will drop the timeline in. Stay in real-time ninja mode to catch the synchros, and you'll be well on your way. Yes, so all this info, we will post these slides on YouTube and on Instagram for you guys to have, to study, to share, whatever you want to do with them. And you're welcome, Janine Pepper. And we will add in the description all the links to the info for the Solstice meetup, y'all. And we'll also make a post. We'll make a post and put it on Instagram and YouTube too. It'll take us probably over the weekend to get to that. But we will have that available. Anybody who's really super interested and doesn't want to wait can DM us or email us.
Or you can just go get it on the website.
Or you can just go order it. Yeah. Or if you have questions about ordering it, you can DM us. Yeah, it is there. That's right. So that link is live. So yeah, thanks everybody for jumping on tonight, and all you troopers still in the chat. We love you. Yeah. Thanks for everybody that joined us on the replay as well. We appreciate you and this huge download. Hopefully it has brought some interesting nuggets to your awareness that you can now look at this part of the sky with different eyes. We are the one and only True Sky Crew. We can be found on YouTube and Instagram at the True Sky Crew. I'm Janine. You can find me at Inner Sky Alchemy on Instagram, and I share stuff on there when I feel called. Most of my content comes through the True Sky Crew for astrology, so check out that if you're looking for astrology stuff. And my books are currently closed because we got like so many projects going on that we're focusing on. I'm going to focus on that. And we'll just see how long that lasts. Maybe in the fall I'll open books up again, but we do have I have a lot of stuff on my plate with the calendars and the daily planners. So I'm going to stay under the radar.
And I am Sachi. You can find me at Sachi the Seer on Instagram, Twitter, X, or YouTube, which I have started to do my readings on YouTube and Instagram again. So if you're interested in some free readings, they are there. And my books are currently open. So if you're interested in working with me, now would be the time to book. And you can do all of that at sachitheseer.com, which is also where you can sign up for the True Sky Crew Solstice trip.
Extravaganza. Yes. So until the next episode, you guys, keep your feet on the ground and your eyes on the sky, because the true sky don't lie. Have a good night.